Hey guys, so it's the year-end show, but I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Lions getting to the promised land and finally winning their first division title since 1993. Gas was $1.11. The cost of a 30-second Super Bowl ad was $850,000. Bill Clinton was his first term as U.S. president, and Lions quarterback Jared Goff not even born yet. Also, Aiden Hutchinson didn't know how to do Instagram Live until last Sunday, which was kind of funny. But the funniest thing of it all, and I can't believe this is happening. Let's take a look at the screen for a second. This is Calvin Johnson saying much appreciated. Thanks for the support. Love my city. Take a look at the original date of the tweet, January 5th, 2021. And he
Ha!
didn't get back to answering it until about 3 years later. Get off the bandwagon, Calvin Johnson. Now all of a sudden that the Lions are a very functional franchise. That and a lot of crazy things happened in 2023. I'm Steve Rabinowitz.
Plenty of first, plenty of last, and plenty of a whole lot of everything in the middle. I'm Jay Kaplan.
I'm Anthony Strait, and I'm still trying to figure out what my last is, but I think I have an idea since you were full of Strait. I said, well, we'll get to
All right, welcome to the madness that is the 2023 on the Sports Lines year-end show, the only award show that actually matters. Through the highs of champs, the lows of mostly all New York sports teams, and the ugliest that is social media, let's cover it all tonight. And guys, before we get to the awards and thoughts on the year that was, guys, it seemed to be a year of firsts and lasts, as Anthony was trying to just spoil the beginning of my whole entire show. Thanks,
it.
buddy. So Jay, what do you remember in the first and last category of 2023?
You know, the when you and I kind of settled on this as the tagline to open the show, I knew it was going to be tough to kind of distill it down, but I came down on two things that happened in baseball this year. The first being the first year of the new rules in baseball and how the game is just so much better for it. Shorter games, more singles, more steals, more base running. If for me it was baseball the way it was meant to be played, and I've loved watching the national pastime more this year than I have in a very long time. One of the lasts that stood out to me were the final hits and home runs in the Hall of Fame career of Miguel Cabrera, who will enter Cooperstown in 5 years as only the seventh member of the very exclusive 3,000 hit 500 home run club, five of whom are in the Hall. Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Eddie Murray, Albert Pujols, and the other two, Rafael Palmeiro and Alex Rodriguez, who aren't likely to get in there anytime soon.
I don't think so. Anthony, tell me about your first and last of this year.
Well, my first is a young lady that you know what we were talking about awards and good moments. We forgot about Coco Gauff. Remember she winning her first U.S. Open.
Right.
Um, and the video came out and she was a young girl. She was in tennis in the U.S. Open 1 year, and almost a decade later, here she is, winning her first U.S. Open. It's such a great moment. And my last is the last time the Detroit Pistons won a game, October 28th against Chicago.
Wow.
So 2 full months. Look, I hate seeing anybody, any fan base, go through this kind of madness. But it's like
Amen.
Detroit is notorious for lengthy losing streaks. You remember the Lions went 0-16. The the Tigers had the worst record in baseball a couple of seasons. The Pistons, man, and they got and it's mind boggling because they have great young talent. Kate Cunningham, you can't rave enough about him. But and Monty Williams is such a good guy, but to see this going down the way it's beyond comical at this point. It's becoming more tragic at this point.
So my first is going to be, you know what? I want to give love to the Detroit Lions for winning their division and kind of being one of the bigger stories of 2023 and just the first of in football that we've seen. And it's been a very wild season, and we're going to talk about it a lot tonight. My last is it's the last 14 college football playoff. Also, first pitch clock. The first time we see the pitch clock this year in Major League Baseball, and damn, doesn't it feel good to see it? And really, it's been revolutionizing the sport too. And my last is going to be, like I said, the last 14 college football playoff. We had some controversy going in. We might also get to that tonight. But I do think it's made for a lot more discussion about college football, and it's going to make for a very intriguing 2024 when we have the 12-team playoff. Probably the thing I'm looking most forward to. All right, let's hand out some hardware without the physical hardware budget. Can't actually do that. Rarely have we had a lot of experience in our first category of Baby New Year. We have everything from the youngest age of 22 to the oldest age of 30 in this category. Hey guys, maybe we all still have a chance to make it big in other platforms. You think so? No? That's me?
There's always a chance, Rabbi.
Anyway, nominees are C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Houston Texans. I know Bryce Young's done well in the last few weeks, but boy, did the Panthers choose wrong with the trade up #1 pick. Stroud has been 7-6 as the Texans starter and is making people actually believe in Buckeye QBs. Didn't know that was possible. Brock Purdy, quarterback, San Francisco 49ers. Yes, technically a second-year player, but when we did this show a year ago at this time, he had 3 damn starts in the NFL. Leave me alone. 18-4, now 18-5, since becoming the Niners starter and possibly an MVP candidate in year 2. The greatest Mr. Irrelevant ever. Don't at me. Corbin Carroll, right fielder, Arizona Diamondbacks. Not just unanimous Rookie of the Year in the NL after a 25-homer season, but one of the linchpins to the D-backs World Series run. At Kodai Senga, pitcher, New York Mets. He came in with a ghost fork that was like legend, but I think settling with an under 3 ERA season and becoming the Mets ace, by default, works fine. And also, he's the 30-year-old I referenced earlier, if you didn't know. And the winner is eligible for AARP in a few years, Kodai Senga, New York Mets. I'm going to start off these discussions tonight. So Senga is a good choice for this award, but we're all biased. So it wasn't as diverse of an award I think that we could have had, but I did want to shout out what Brock Purdy has done as the 49ers starter. He has been almost Montana-like in terms of where he risen up from. Purdy came from Iowa State, where he did a lot of winning. Montana came from Notre Dame. Purdy was obviously a 7th-round pick. Montana, a 3rd-round pick. And this is a machine. And what Kyle Shanahan runs is a machine. And he does what he needs to do. He gets the ball out to Deebo Samuel. He gets the ball out to Brandon Ayuk. He hands the ball off to Christian McCaffrey, and he makes mostly good decisions. He's had some setbacks. As we see, the Baltimore Ravens kicked him in the teeth many times on Monday night. But I think he's going to possibly be a future Super Bowl champion if he keeps this up. C.J. Stroud, what has he done for the Texans in a year? It's an insane amount. I saw Corbin Carroll every now and then this year. A great player fitting into a great team in the Arizona Diamondbacks. I would have probably given the award to Stroud or Purdy because I like how Senga's done this year. I know I've gotten off the path, but I think he has become someone who the Mets are going to need because they don't have a lot of solid pitching, and really all of the free agent pitching that they depended on didn't work as well as they should have. But guys, if you want to pick Senga for this award, fine. But I do think at least the 2 quarterbacks do have a better case for this award, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, based solely on the numbers he put up, 12-7, 2.98 ERA with an opponent slash line at 208, 301, 327, a 627 OPS. Only had a 2.5% home run rate, 11.1 walk rate, and a 29.1 strikeout rate. I mean, Senga deserves to be one of the finalists for this award, but I'm going to call out the New York Mets bias here on him getting it as, winning it. 4 of the 7 panelists who voted are lifelong fans of the baseball team from Queens, including my pal Anthony up there. So sorry.
Don't tell him about the thoughts, man. Come on.
Yeah, I have no issues with Brock Purdy or Corbin Carroll. Purdy had a terrific rookie year. I mean, and I can find my dive into him into basically just his actual rookie season last year. Took over as the 49ers QB1 in an in-game situation in week 12. Put up some ridiculous numbers over the final 6 games of the regular season. 68.3% completion percentage, 218 yards passing per game, 8.1 yards per attempt, a 13-3 touchdown to interception ratio, and a 112 pass rating. Numbers I doubt even Kyle Shanahan saw coming from Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, who'd have thunk it that Purdy getting hurt in the NFC title game would be the reason last year's 49ers team, which went 13-4 and was loaded with talent, didn't make the Super Bowl. And while he's had, a few rocky outings, as the rabbi said, Most recently, Christmas night, throwing 4 picks in the loss to the Ravens. He's a huge reason this year's 49ers team is arguably the favorite to rep the NFC in the Super Bowl. As for Carroll, unanimous NL Rookie of the Year, 285, 362, 506 slash line, 868 OPS. His on-base percentage was number 2, and his slugging percentage number 3 among all NL rookies. His 25 home runs were tied for number 1 among NL rookies. His 54 steals was number 1 among NL rookies. Say also put up 76 RBIs and 116 run scores. That's numbers for a legit finalist. He was one of the major reasons why the Arizona Diamondbacks were able to get past such senior circuit titans as the Dodgers and the defending nationally champion Phillies and make it to the World Series. But for my money, guys, the guy who epitomized what this award means is the now injured rookie quarterback of the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud. I know. Diehard Michigan Wolverines fan here making the case for a former Ohio State Buckeye. But while the Texans were very high on the number 2 pick in the 2023 NFL draft, he wasn't expected to do this. He took a team that was 3-13 and 1 last season, put them on his back, or his right arm, if you will, and put them in playoff contention before getting hurt. 6 300-plus passing yard games, 7 games with 2 touchdowns or more, 6 games with a passer rating above 100. His 470-yard, 5-touchdown performance in a 39-37 comeback win, highlighted by taking the Texans 65 yards in 40 seconds for the game-winning score on a 15-yard pass to wide receiver Tank Dell, was one of the signature moments of this NFL season. His 62.4% completion percentage, 279.3 yards per game, 8.2 yards per attempt, 20-5 touchdown to interception ratio, and 98.7 passer rating will have him in the conversation for NFL AP Rookie of the Year, despite his season being cut short. He did everything you could ask a franchise quarterback to do to put his team in playoff contention, and he did it as a rookie. That's baby New Year worthy stuff, guys.
Anthony?
Yeah, I would say this though. I think if Stroud doesn't get hurt and is playing right now, more likely the Texans are probably fighting for the division title at the rate he was playing.
They're probably winning. They're probably leading.
They're probably winning the division.
They're so tied for it now.
Yeah, but I think the injury. I mean, look, Stroud for the small sample that we got at CJ Stroud. The Texans, they got a great quarterback for the foreseeable future on their hands. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, but you can make the case that look at the team and the weapons he have around him. And we saw early this season when he's missing a few of those weapons that Purdy does struggle. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but we forget that he is still a second-year starter. Still going through the growing pains to be an NFL quarterback. Corbin Carroll, he was one of the catalysts for that Diamondbacks team. You talk about the pitch clock. If there was a team that was custom made for the pitch clock era, it was the Diamondbacks that used speed and aggressiveness pretty much to run the Dodgers out of the playoffs and come from behind and to beat the Phillies in NLCS. And Carroll was such a big part of that. Who's Asian American Rookie of the Year winner in Major League Baseball? So that's definitely have to be taken into consideration. Kodai Senga, to me, and I'm not saying this because I'm wearing a Mets sweater. I went to a few of his stars. I think early on, he had the rough passes with his control. He was walking a lot of hitters. As the season went on, I think he adjusted to the Major League hitters and throwing more pitches for strikes, throwing more contact. And I think it worked out well for him as the season won. He's only the second best pitcher, rookie pitcher to eclipse 200 strikeouts. The last one was Dwight Gooden in his rookie campaign. He finished second among national stars in ERA, fourth in strikeouts per 9 innings. And he became the Mets ace really by default. I mean, you talk about Max Scherzer, obviously, and Justin Verlander getting traded. Senga definitely stepped up quite a bit in his starts, particularly after the All-Star break, and also becoming an All-Star in his first year in the majors. When you think about the seasons that the Mets went through, him being one of the few bright spots, probably the biggest bright spot, considering that the Mets went through hell and back to actually get him. And I mean, he was able to live up to a lot of expectations that the team had. and it seems in some form. So I think he's definitely well deserved. But you can make an argument for all these guys. I mean, I'm just saying because he's a winner, I'll make the argument for him. But all four guys are very well deserving of this award. I mean, they've all had great seasons. Stroud, I wish he was healthy. I wish I would have been able
Yeah,
to see him
I
finish
mean,
out the season and to see
Mhm.
what the Texans would have done, especially in the back half of the season. So,
well, they're still
yeah.
they're still 8-7, and they still are very much because of the AFC South on the wild
Yeah,
card.
yeah, AFC playoff picture is pretty wild.
By the way, just a heads up, we have 1 out of 7 people on this panel being a Michigan fan, so I wanted to keep that in mind, considering we have 4 Mets fans. So, but again, if we're going to be forthwith, we're going to be forthwith about everyone's allegiances tonight. I don't care. All right, you want to ignore the coach? See how that works out for you. Our nominees for head of the table / coach of the year have respect, credibility, the ability to whoop your ass if you ignore them, and oh yeah, titles. Bruce Bochy, manager, Texas Rangers. His 5th World Series appearance got Texas their first World Series title, and Bochy's 4th. Old guys rule. He does qualify for AARP, by the way, so everybody magazines. Mike Malone, coach, Denver Nuggets, taking the Nuggets to a Rocky Mountain High. The Queens, New York native, took Denver in his 8th season at the helm at the Pepsi Arena to the Castle of O'Brien. Dan Hurley, coach, UConn basketball, the ruler of the Northeast college basketball scene. Peace out, Jim Boeheim. After success at Wagner and Rhode Island, his 5th season in Stewards gave this basketball blue bud title number 5. Andy Reid, coach, Kansas City Chiefs. Ladies and gentlemen, cheeseburgers for everyone. I didn't need that. I don't have it coming. In his career, he's won 14 division titles, been to 10 conference championships, 4 Super Bowls, and lifted up Lombardi for the 2nd time in February. Put some respect on his name as a great. Winner is the oldest guy wins again. Bruce Bochy. Congrats. This is a good award because you rarely have awards where all 4 of the winners have won titles this year. I think one thing that's different from Coach of the Year nominees before the playoffs and after the playoffs is the fact that the playoffs mean something. And Bruce Bochy would have been a nominee without a title this year, taking the Texas Rangers pretty much back to division title contention. I know they won the wild card, and they had to settle for the wild card on the last day and did lose the division to the Astros, but got back at them in the AL playoff, the ALCS. But Bochy, great job and instant Hall of Famer, and you just didn't realize that until this year. Like, oh my God, this guy has been to 5 World Series and now titles. And this man was the guy who got his ass kicked in 1998 by the greatest baseball team of all time in the New York Yankees of 1998. Mike Malone, Dan Hurley, both good nominees, both at the peak of their sport. Just seeing what this Denver Nuggets team was whole was definitely something special to watch. It was good to see. And Andy Reid, what can you say about him? I just ran down the numbers. To have a second act after what he did in Philadelphia, regardless of the generational talent that he has a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, by far a Hall of Famer and probably one of the top 5 coaches to have ever played the game. All of these nominees are worthy. First one I could think of, I had trouble picking whoever would win here, but me and Anthony did pick Bochy, so I think it's a good pick. Anthony, I'll let you go next on this one. No bad nominees here, my book.
No, just already. Mike Malone, I feel like we finally get to see how good the Denver Nuggets are when healthy and as a whole. And Mike Malone, the team take on his personality, that bravado and the swag. Obviously, we saw Malone taking a few shots at the Lakers' expense after they swept Los Angeles in the Western Conference Finals. But Bruce Bochy, everywhere he's gone, he's been a winner. I mean, you talked about the leading the politics of the World Series 1998. Yeah, they got swept by the Yankees, but keep in mind they knocked over the Atlanta Braves, which was at that time in the middle of their run of NL East championships. There were a couple of years removed from World Series. They still had Smoltz, Mattis, and Glavine too. So that wasn't exactly a pushover that they knocked off in the league championships
Yeah.
to get to the World Series. and they talk about the 3 World Series that he won in San Francisco. And yes, the joke was always if there was an even year, you had to pick the Giants to win the World Series because it seemed like every even year they were right there. Even the year they didn't win, 2016, Madison Bumgarner. I mean, you saw what he did to the Mets in the wild card game.
Mm.
Who knows what happens if they're able to hold on to that game 4 lead against Chicago at home. But Bolsha was in retirement and was retired, and the Texas Rangers was able to convince him to come out of retirement to take over a team that was bad, that was not that was lacking pitching,
Underachieving.
and that just
Underachieving.
an underachieving team to say the least. And to take this team to where they ended up going to the World Series, and even when they lost the division on the last day of the regular season, they went into the playoffs just steamrolling everybody. It was like if you can keep this team off the scoreboard for an inning, good luck. It just seemed like once they got rolling, there was just no stopping them. And even the game 7 against Houston's would stand out to me because we've seen teams in game 7 on a roll kind of buckle. And this is the first year we saw 2 teams go on a roll and win a game 7 in very hostile environments. Houston and as I know, Philadelphia respectively. But Bruce Bochy, there isn't much else you can say about the guy is that he's a winner everywhere he goes. By the way, he's also the manager of the France national baseball team too.
Yeah.
I left that. I kind of left that part out of my notes, but like I said, everywhere he goes, he's a winner. He's a baseball guy, a lifer, and what he's able to do with a team that underachieved and put it all together in such a short time. It just reminded me of the 2003 Marlins when they get an old guy out of retirement and suddenly everything comes together.
It is that old. Jack
story.
McKeon was that old, by the way. By the way, before I get to Jay, I do want to remind you people, since you mentioned it, Madison Bumgarner did once date a woman named Madison Bumgarner.
That's funny.
True. Go look it up, Jay.
Rabbi, you talked about old guys ruling, and it kind of dawned on me when Anthony was, doing his piece there that the last, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the last 3 managers to win World Series are all qualify as old guys and baseball lifers. Snicker, Dusty, and now Bochy, right?
Yep.
I got to say, this is one of the better foursomes we've had for this award in recent memory. I mean, Andy Reid's been somewhat of a perennial nominee for this award, which is no surprise considering his resume as a whole, which he bolstered by winning his 2nd Super Bowl. But, the 3 others, including our winner, each did something for the first time in either their history or their team's history, and that's pretty impressive. Dan Hurley winning his first ever NCAA men's basketball championship with the UConn Huskies in one of the crazier March Madness years in recent memory, and that's coming from the guy who says that every year of the NCAA tournament it's the craziest tournament ever. Michael Malone winning his first NBA title as a head coach and the first in Denver Nuggets history. Sure, having arguably the best player in the association in Nikola Jokic helps, but Malone was masterful all season, and he did his best work at the right time. But, I have to give it to our winner, Bruce Bochy, who, as you guys noted, came out of retirement to take over the Texas Rangers and led them to their first World Series title. This is a man who had nothing left to prove in the game, having 3 World Series titles already on a Hall of Fame-worthy resume. The Rangers had a roller coaster of a season, something we documented in depth on the show. And throughout it all, from spring training to the World Series, Bochy stayed even-keeled and consistent in his message that they were all in this together. Rangers offensive coordinator and bench coach Donnie Ecker said it best in describing his boss. Here's the quote. "It's this combination of passion and people. The fire is lit so high, but then his ability to maneuver and have conversations with people and do it in a way that is supportive, transparent, and challenging is a really unique blend. In a day and age where people maybe shy away from perceived difficult conversations, it's like waking up and having breakfast to him. He does not miss a conversation. There are things that can be left unsaid. He makes sure they are said. Leadership like that gets you a 4th World Series ring and our 2023 Head of the Table Award for Best Coach or Manager."
And I think, this has just been a very good season for old guys. So we now just continue the old guys theme. All right. Ask any diva football player, and you'll know who they'll call a Grinch or something that rhymes with it. Wow, that coach doesn't draw plays for me. Wow, that coach asked me to block. He ruined my Christmas or whatever I celebrate. No coaches here, but I do have some owners that are now nominated for Grinch. Here we go. David Tepper, owner, Carolina Panthers. Is it the 2-13 record this season and the second worst record in the past 6 seasons that puts him here? Nah, it's the failure to be culpable that he made the wrong pick so far at QB and fired another head coach mid-season to show for it that puts him here. Jim Irsay, owner of the Indianapolis Colts. He's the jerk of the NFL. Not just because he's a jerk, but he played the Steve Martin, I was born a poor black child card, claiming discrimination because of being rich and white when talking about his own 2014 DWI arrest on Real Sports. Draymond Green, Golden State Warriors. Hey, an actual player on this list. 5 ejections in the calendar year and an attitude of, fellas, what's the issue here? Has Adam Silver has definitely sidelined him from playing basketball. And Luis Rubiales, president of the Royal Spanish Football Federation and the UEFA vice president. Well, former of both. Oh, yeah, after Spain football won the Women's World Cup, he kissed star Jenny Hermosa on the lips and then harassed her later, saying the two of them would be married. Oh, old guys. I guess they haven't had a good year. Later, he would be thrown out of both positions. It took a little longer than it should have. And the winner is, hey guys, podcast host, recognized podcast hosts. It's Draymond Green. Good award. I think I would almost, if Draymond wasn't nominated, I would just call it the old white guy or old guy out of tune award for 2023 and really almost any other year. But what Draymond did was a little bit more special because Draymond goes from a guy who now I think year to year, because the NBA has become so much more competitive, he could become the glue guy. Remember, he got signed to a big deal of 4 years of $100 million in the offseason. And he's a guy who would be great on any team as a glue guy. However, he's also a guy who doesn't want to rebuild, and he's also a guy who just can't deal with young talent. And he's also a guy that is pretty much triggered very easily, and that's why the man is now indefinitely suspended. We saw what he did to Rudy Gobert on the court, whether you like him or not. Maybe not the best thing in the world. You saw what he's done with the flaying elbow, and you saw what he did to Domantas Sabonis in the NBA playoffs. Draymond Green is the Dennis Rodman of our generation. The question, he does have the titles to back it up. The question is, sometimes it's about to go over the edge, and I think we've hit that point. And so Draymond is a good nominee for this award. Again, 4 strong nominees over here. Tepper and Irsay, we kind of leaked together because we talked about them on a show together. Tepper is the guy who, ironically, modeled the Steeler way when he was Panthers head coach. Whoops!
Obviously, didn't learn anything.
He did not only did not learn anything. He is a guy who there have been reports he's been a little more learning of what football actually is when looking for his new head coach, but he's made way too many decisions in order to actually make his head coach. And Irsay's interview, very tone deaf, also argued with reporters afterwards who called him tone deaf. The man doesn't understand that he doesn't get a special set of rules because he owns the team. You are a person and a figure in sports. You don't get any disadvantages. I don't think anybody should get any advantages out there over other people. But Irsay definitely plays the privileged card way too much as a harassment thing. You tell that to some of the people who are playing in the NFL. And Luis Rubiales, definitely a black mark on what was a monumental Women's World Cup. I love seeing different teams in the mix. I love seeing Australia's run. I love seeing Spain. I love seeing England be in that mix. But when you have people like him, it reminds you that soccer, European soccer specifically, is really a good old boys club. All of these nominees are deserved again. I'm sure this could have gone to anybody, but you know what? I'm glad the player is getting some recognition, Jay, out of the others.
Yeah, I mean, we said plenty on our last regular show of 2023 about both, Jim Irsay and David Tepper. So I don't feel the need to add any more to my rant on both of them and how they are awful examples of both NFL owners as well as human beings. The stuff with Rubiales, it goes beyond just cringe-worthy. I am glad that, like, in the past, he would have very much been able to get away with all of that. I am very much glad, as an uncle of multiple nieces of multiple ages, that female athletes are no longer putting up with that nonsense just for the privilege of playing their sport, whether it's at the club level or the World Cup level. Man crossed the line, got kicked to the curb, rightly so. What I found interesting, guys, is as we embarked on the nomination process for this award, was the number of players who made the list. 7 out of the 11 nominees were players, and the fact that our winner is someone who could quite possibly be a Hall of Famer when his playing days are over, and I mean due to a retirement, not another indefinite suspension, though that can't be ruled out.
It could be both, let's be fair.
We'll see. You said Rodman, Rabbi. I went with the Bill Laimbeer of his era when describing Draymond. His teammates generally like him, Jordan Poole aside, and appreciate what his skill set and leadership bring to the team. They see him as an integral part of a championship roster. He has the rings to prove it, despite the fact that sometimes his actions or reactions cost them his services, sometimes at the most inopportune moments. The rest of the NBA can't stand him. They see him as a dirty player who crosses the line far too often and is deserving of every technical foul and suspension he gets. Now, Green's latest suspension, which, as you noted, is of the indefinite variety where he must undergo counseling and meet certain requirements mandated by both the NBA and the Warriors in order to return, came after he struck Suns center Yusuf Nurkic in the face back on December 12th, and was based partly on Green's repeated history of unsportsmanlike acts. That's a quote from Joe Dumars. He's been ejected 20 times and has been suspended 6 times, twice this season alone. The first one for putting, as Rabbi noted, T-Wolf center Rudy Gobert in a headlock. He also served 2 separate one-game suspensions last season, one for piling up 16 technical fouls, and the other came in the playoffs as, Rabbi, as you noted, he stepped on Kings power forward Domantas Sabonis. I think we gave this award to Draymond for the same reasons the NBA gave him an indefinite suspension. What he's done just in this calendar year of 2023 alone would merit it, but also because of his repeated Grinch-worthy history. Here's hoping he does what is necessary both on and off the court to ensure that he's not a repeat nominee, let alone a repeat winner of this award when we do it next year.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, us there Teflon, we talked about it at great length for our last show. I don't think I want to go too much back into them, other than the both out of touch owners who just don't get it. Rubiales, first, I mean, his action is inappropriate, but even more so, it not only did it take away from Spain moment of triumph and winning their first World Cup, Women's World Cup,
shadow over
but it put a spotlight on male toxic behavior,
masculinity.
Yeah, masculinity
and meritocracy.
And it brought it into the forelight on the national stage. That it's a reminder that women's sports have come a long way, but because of crap like this, still has a long way to go. Because this is and it's like Jay, I'm a uncle of tons of nieces, and obviously I wouldn't want anything like this to happen to one of them. So obviously, when I saw it, I was grossed out and appalled by his actions. The fact that he tried to double down on it, I mean, that just made me more disgusted. And rightfully, he was given the boot. But Draymond Green, I mean, we've seen his answers for years. I mean, and the thing was, he got away when it was overlooked because the Warriors were winning. They're not winning now, and there are a couple years removed from that championship, but everything just fell into place for that championship run, and you felt like going into this season, that was literally everything would have to fall into place for that to happen again. And Draymond has told his team more than anything. And I think that's where his antics is becoming more and more of a head scratcher because it's like, dude, you're not helping your team. You're hurting the Warriors now more than anything because this is still a young team that needs leadership on the court. Steph Curry cannot be Superman every night. And we see Klay Thompson show flashes of being the guy he used
But
to
he's
be.
not. He's absolutely
He's not the
not
same.
even near that.
He's not the same Klay Thompson that we saw before the injuries. And Steve Kerr can only defend him so much. And it gets to the point where Draymond's got to knock it off. I mean, dude, you've been in the game a long time. You've been in the league a long time. He's a very basketball knowledgeable guy. I mean, you listen to his podcast. The guy knows what he's talking about. I mean, and obviously he was very key Team USA a couple years ago, and winning the gold medal. Remember, he was the only guy who remember that you could knock the ball off the cylinder in international play, which was key late in that fourth quarter.
I think just to wrap this up, guys, just because we have people waiting, I think the knowledge of Draymond has always been there. It's just a question of can the man control himself on the court? Because I think on the court, he becomes a different player. All right, let's invite some more people to the party because, I want to, and I'm a good, gracious host. So we'll have Pedro Hazel Jr. in a moment, but we have our friend Sean Roman entertaining us tonight. Good evening, sir, with the Christmas tree in the background. Big plus. And Pedro Hazel Jr. is also connecting at the moment. We will get to him in just a second. The script goes on. Say good evening, Sean.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you.
Hey, what's going on?
Sean.
He got the note, by the way, that jackets were optional, but of course he he's a lawyer. He should. All right. Guys, I bring you over here because we come to one of our favorite awards of 2023 in all years. It's the What the Fuck Award, an annual tradition unlike any other. Screw you, Masters. Love this. We start with the
Take that, Jim Nance.
Let's not throw Jim Nance under the bus here. He had his last NCAA tournament this year. Anyway, all of these nominees make you say, I can't believe what I just saw. The saga of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. One is a notable name in America and bringing the NFL to new heights, and one is just simply a two-time Super Bowl champion for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a love story, baby. Just say yes. Next nominee. The MLB postseason. Baltimore Orioles, 1 seed in the AL and 100-plus game winner, swept. Atlanta Braves, best team in decades and 1 seed in the NL, out in 4 to the Phillies again. Dodgers lose to a second-place team, double-digit games behind them. Oh, okay, this time in 3, that's not as shocking. The Dodgers always blow everything. Anyway, a lot of people do that. UConn women's basketball is not in the NCAA tournament women's mainstay, but Iowa and LSU women's basketball with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese as stars helps the women's tournament get record ratings in 2023, almost as good as the men's. And then Florida, the state of almost champions. Miami Heat, NBA Finals is an 8 seed. Florida Panthers, Stanley Cup Finals is an 8 seed. Oh, and college basketball saw a pair of Final Four teams in Miami and Florida Atlantic. Did any of them win a title? Not really. And that's why I didn't win this. The winner is Swifties. Rejoice. It's Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. By the way, good evening, connected on with us. Good evening, sir. One of the patriarchs of this show. Glad to see you tonight.
Hi, hi, Steve. How you doing? Hi, Jay. Hi, Sean. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, what's going on?
Good to have you, Pedro.
You know what I've said to myself all week? I want to hear the thoughts of Sean Roman talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and now I can get it here right in my living room. Sean, go ahead.
I'm wondering whether Taylor Swift arrived in Kansas City and the atmosphere of them after winning 2 Super Bowls, after being deprived of championships for so long, whether she arrived on the rise, on the precipice, or can be blamed if she's the cause of something fall. It's a lot about timing, because if she wound up with an NFL player from like an underdog team who started on an upward trajectory, there's something else to that. But she's there. The Kansas City Chiefs have, a coach who has played for decades and right now he's getting his notoriety, and he's got 2 Super Bowl championships. They got a young quarterback also with 2 Super Bowl championships, who you wonder if this is it for him. Is he going to peak where Eli and Peyton Manning were in terms of where they won Super Bowl championships, or is he going to ascend to Tom Brady territory or Terry Bradshaw territory or Joe Montana's territory? Still a mystery. So it's an interesting dynamic, which has been a lot of fun. You know, how many times is the camera going to cut to the most popular pop star in the entire world? How is she reacting to every play? I mean,
Is she saying a 4-letter curse word at some point that the camera
Invariably.
pick up?
yeah, it's definitely quite a deserving winner. I did want to throw in one honorable mention, just like the type of notification where your phone goes off in the sports world, and I'm like, WTF? Oh wow. What did that to me this year? I think that's a great way to judge this award when you're looking for it. And when I saw Lionel Messi was playing in the MLS and decided to go to Miami, I was pretty shocked. And that he chose Miami. It seems like no great athlete is picking New York. They all want to play in either California, Florida, or somewhere that is not New York. And after winning the World Cup last year, ending his career sort of on a guaranteed high note, because he's going to be better than 95% of the MLS players, play a year or two here and probably call it a career or go into coaching or something like that, really made me shocked. And it made me and my soccer group, who play together once or twice a week, quite enthused.
95?
It's the weather. It's the weather in California and Florida.
And the
It's
lack
the
of a
weather.
state income tax.
You know what? That's right too.
That's in
No state
Florida.
income tax. You're definitely right.
You know what I've wanted to say all week? Pedro Hazel Jr., what is your opinion on Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce?
Well, my opinion on Taylor Swift, she is what she is. I mean, everybody likes her because she's a likable person, and I actually too, she has a place. I'm serious. She has a place near where I live.
Yeah.
I've
Does have a
walked
New York
by
apartment.
where her place is. I've walked by, and But anyway, she is what she is, and hey, she's a likable person. That's why everybody likes her.
Anthony, there's other nominees that unfortunately couldn't win this award, but I'm very impressed with the heights that women's college basketball has taken in 2023, especially with Caitlin Clark. And don't forget Angel Reese and what that has happened in terms of just the sport of basketball.
Yeah, but nothing got more hits that in the 48 hours after that national championship than Angel Reese talking smack to Caitlin Clark and
Vice versa.
and vice versa, and seemingly every pundit going after Angel Reese, completely forgetting that Caitlin Clark has a reputation for trash talking her opponents, which she did literally 2 games early in the tournament. But yeah, when you saw that the national championship game was being moved to broadcast TV rather than traditional cable, I thought it was a big deal for women's college basketball, women's sports in general. This year, we saw the ratings for the Women's World Cup despite the time difference. The WNBA even enjoyed some success, record ratings, and like I said, this is a big year for women's sports. Is going in the step in the right direction, and Caitlin Clark is still we'll talk about her later on in the show. It's still at the top of the conversation when you talk women college hoops.
Indeed.
But for the Kansas City Chiefs in the world, they need to stop worrying about blaming Taylor Swift for the wide receivers' inability to catch a football, and be more worried about Taylor Swift writing a breakup song about Travis Kelce in about 5 months, and this thing goes south. She has a history of writing breakup songs about her exes now. We gotta keep that in mind. I'm just saying. Look, they both seem like very likable personalities. Obviously, Travis and his brother Jason are a couple of knuckleheads that could get the Gronkowskis a run for their money. But yeah, I think right now Kansas City biggest worry should be getting guys who can catch the football and stay on side rather than the celebrity pop star who showed up to games every week.
Also, by the way, you have to realize that Travis Kelce also became more of an international superstar because he did a podcast with his brother. So that helped out a ton too. Jay, you get the last.
What? It's not the Christmas song or the
Oh no, it's a whole it's a podcast.
celebration.
It's a podcast. I do a lot of other stuff too. Jay, you get the last word on this. Again, 4 strong nominees over here. I really do feel like any of them could have won it. I'm more impressed with what Florida did in that little bit of a run this year. But again, this is another one that could have been up for grabs.
Yeah, I agree with you, Reb. I mean, we have the 3 other finalists for, what we refer to as the good portion of our WTF awards combo. All perfect examples of stuff that happened on the surfaces of play that made us channel our inner Jack Buck and use his iconic catchphrase of "I can't believe what I just saw." Everything that happened in Miami across multiple sports. Heat is an underdog making the finals. Panthers making the Stanley Cup Finals as an underdog. University of Miami and Florida, Atlantic showing us that that South Beach can play a little college hoops as well. I mean, we saw a very March Madness like MLB postseason. And as much as it turned, there was no chalk to speak of, but in a lot of ways that was kind of cool. You guys spoke, very well, and we'll do it further down in the show about the women's NCAA tournament and Caitlin Clark. So I'm going to leave that for there. In any other year, any of them, along with a host of others who made the nominations list, would have been a worthy winner, as each is the epitome of what we love about sports on their specific surfaces of play. But as I've said to various people, both connected and unconnected to On the Sports Lines, and I'm in a pretty unique situation as someone who has one foot in the sports world working on this show and another somewhat in the music industry working for Rolling Stone. Something is no longer just an NFL thing or even just a sports thing, but has become a cultural phenomenon when Rolling Stone is writing articles about Kansas City Chiefs games. Now, people have asked me if I thought the NFL's best tight end dating one of the queens of the music industry was manufactured. I don't believe that for a second. A, I'm a hopeless romantic. And 2, both of them seem to be genuine in how they feel about each other. As Taylor told Time Magazine in her interview with them, with her after being named their Person of the Year for 2023, that the first time we saw her at one of Kelsey's games was not their first date, as many speculated. They had actually spent a significant amount of time together before that, but nobody knew. So by the time she appeared at that game, they were already a couple. The public just didn't know it. And to all those who follow Swift, but not the NFL, no, she didn't put Travis Kelce on the proverbial map. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer when his playing career is over. And with all of his commercials and his podcast with his brother Jason, the center for the Eagles, who is also likely to end up in the Hall of Fame, he was already a well-known quantity outside of the NFL. And to all those dads, Brads, and Chads, those are Taylor's words, not mine, who get pissed off every time Swift is shown on camera, get over yourself. A, Swift is like any other significant other. She's just there to support her guy. She has zero idea when and how often she is on camera. And 2, the NFL has zero problem with broadcast highlighting her appearance at a game, which for the most part, they've done very judiciously. Broadcast directors and producers are pros after all. And because when an icon like Taylor Swift says, and here's the quote, "Football's awesome," it turns out I've been missing out my whole life. The NFL just smiles and says thank you all the way to the bumps in ratings and dollars for her that her appearances bring. The Chiefs game at the Meadowlands against the Jets on Sunday Night Football that she attended in October was the most watched Sunday show, not just NFL game, but TV show since the Super Bowl. The uptick in Chiefs merchandise sales due to Swifties getting gear has opened up a new consumer base for the NFL. Look, does it suck that the Chiefs, as one of the NFL's marquee teams, is not having a Super Bowl level regular season filled with Mahomes miracles and Kelce catches? Yeah, it does. But Casey will make the playoffs, so who knows how far this thing will or won't go. At some point, if this relationship lasts, and yes, the breakup song is always in the back of a lot of people's minds because it's this Taylor Swift thing, the buzz surrounding it will drop from its current level of 11 on the Richter scale. But for this year, it's no doubt the winner of this award, and rightfully so.
Is Kadarius Toney going to get a breakup song once that happens? Because I would rather that.
Yeah, but his is going to come from Andy Reid.
Well, it's going to come from every Kansas City fan.
Here, here, Jay.
All right. Now the yin to the yang. The moments that WTF actually made you say, are you effing kidding me? Language, Steve. Language. Okay. Here are the nominees that people didn't want to see in 2020. The Oakland Athletics, the only team disrespecting their area enough for people to pull a reverse boycott on them. Good luck with your move to Las Vegas, where you'll become the 20th most important thing there. Ja Morant, Grizzlies basketball superstar with the part-time hobby of flashing guns on Instagram Live. His failure to be aware of who he is got him an 8-game suspension last season and a 25-game suspension this season, putting the Grizzlies in a huge hole. Kevin Brown, no, not the fucker that ruined the 2004 World Series ALCS for the Yankees in Game 7. This is an Orioles announcer that was grounded by Orioles management for the simple crime of reading off previous stats of Baltimore's struggles against the Tampa Bay Rays. That's it. Man did nothing else. I wish I was kidding. And ACC Power 5 conference winner and undefeated Florida State getting left out of the college football playoff. Undefeated worked for Florida State in the first year of the 14 college football playoff in 2015, not so much in 2024. And the winner is, the Angelos family. They win again. Kevin Brown's weird suspension, although they never called it a suspension. I will say one thing before I hand it off, and I'm going to hand it off to Anthony first on this one. I don't think Florida State should be here. I put it up for nomination, but you know what? I think the CFP had a very hard time this year figuring out the 4 best teams, especially when one of the teams was on a backup quarterback who eventually transferred out of Florida State to even give himself a platform to play. And he would have been playing, he did this literally days before the game against Georgia. So, with that being said, I think it was unfortunate what happened to Florida State, but you know what? We'll solve this next year with the 12-team playoff. The other 3 awards are not terrible. The other 3 nominees are not terrible, Anthony. It was good that you reminded us of the Kevin Brown stuff from earlier in the season. I would have personally gone with Ja Morant just because of a career that's been basically tarnished. Again, you have to be aware of who you are when you're a public figure, Anthony. But again, any one of these nominees could have easily, I say this for everything, but every one of these easily won this award too. But I know you have a special place in your heart for the Florida State Seminoles, even though, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, Florida State, I think what me the wrong way about this was, if it was any other argument, like maybe a strength of schedule or common opponents, and something that was done on the field, I think I would have agreed with the committee and going with Alabama. But you basically punish a team that checked every day on the criteria except have the star player be healthy. And I thought that was kind of like a gut punch. I mean, like, yeah, for us, you know, we're fans, we're gonna watch the games regardless. So if you're a coach for that team, how do you go into the locker room and tell your players that your best all season long wasn't good enough for one weekend when Alabama actually reminded everybody just how good they were after the last 5 months of being really an average, mediocre team for Alabama standards? And like I said, it reminded me of, I think back to 2006. Remember, if everybody remember this, Hofstra beating George Mason.
Yeah, I knew you were going to mention that.
And the same week, only to see George Mason get picked over Hofstra to go to the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's a bit of a gut punch because you realize, it's a gut punch for FSU because you realize that something that you had no control over is the reason why you are not in the college football playoff playing for the national championship game. And that is kind of hard to comprehend if you are a player on that team, if you are a guy on the defense who realize you're going to take your game to another level because your star player is hurt. And you have to raise your level of intensity to another level. I mean, that's hard to to accept that. And it's going to be hard for that program to get over for a while. I mean, we see them trying to lead the 18th seed, and we'll see where that goes. Ja Morant, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this guy, he has it all. We've seen him when he came back the first game against New Orleans. This guy is so talented. And for me, and me being, like I said, thinking it's an old guy mentality, I wish somebody would just pull John to the side and say, look, if you're not going to do it for anything, you are a young father, do it for your daughter. Leave this knucklehead stuff behind. Stop being more selective about who you surround yourself with, and realize you're the one the most to lose, not these hanger-oners that are just being around you for clout. And look, and I hate to criticize his dad, because I want to give him credit for at least raising him and getting him to where he is. But I mean, it's kind of hard to overlook his father antics, sitting courtside in certain games, and it's like it's cringeworthy to say the least. The Oakland A's are the Oakland A's. I don't know what else to say to you. Bad ownership. They're cheap. They won't spend anything on their stadium, and the fan base suffer the most in all these circumstances. But the Kevin Brown thing, it was just, how do you suspend a guy for doing his job? I mean, and we all in sports. We've all dabbled in some capacity in the past, but I've never seen a situation where a guy doing his job, reading stats, and point out the obvious of a team struggles against an opponent, get punished for it. And I even said on the show, I would say, look, if the Baltimore Orioles don't think Kevin Brown is good enough for them, there are literally 29 other Major League Baseball teams who will roll out the red carpet for this guy. He's a great announcer, great baseball personality, who's done the Orioles games for quite a while now. And like I said, I'm beside myself at this family because it seems like they have a history of just doing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
I will say that a little smile kind of came to me a little bit when the Orioles got swept. So that's what I'm gonna say. Pedro, a lot of good nominees. One thing that I noticed the night when all the Kevin Brown stuff came out, Gary Cohen came out and said exactly what Anthony said. I know 29 other teams that would be very happy to have somebody like him as your announcer.
Well, the way I think about this Kevin Brown thing was just so idiotic. He wasn't even criticizing his team. He was just telling people the record between the Orioles record against the Rays. I mean, everybody I know does that. If they're playing the Rays, every announcer I know does that, and they don't lose their jobs. But I've heard that the Orioles owner, Angelos, I think his son's now running the team. I think he's just as crazy as his dad. In my opinion,
possibly more.
Yeah, so
possibly more.
Tell me about it. I was at the Orioles on Orioles Mets game in August, and it was a great experience. And of course they beat the Mets, but that's another story altogether. The fans, this is the first time the Orioles have been in this position in years. And but like I said, going back to Kevin Brown, just ludicrous, totally ludicrous. As for Florida State, it's like I can't, like basically what Anthony said, you make so much effort and then you can't get in because Alabama is a bigger name. Alabama brings in more money. I thought that's really ridiculous. As for the A's, well, I'm not going to say anything about the A's. The A's have needed a new ballpark for a long, long time. But a lot of these stadium situations, it's who's going to pay for it. Who's going to pay for it? But again, too, the owner is beyond contempt. So, John Morant, we all know I don't think he should even play in the NBA anymore.
Ooh.
All these suspensions and everything, I don't know. He's as Anthony said, when you're in a public figure, you're a public figure, you're an athlete, you're an NBA player, you're in the public eye. And you have to watch what you're doing, and you're in the public eye. And he just refuses to listen, and that's the way these things go. I think he should be banned and be a permanent.
There's a lot of people, I think. I just think there's just too much talent from John Morant's standpoint that he's going to need a permanent ban. I mean, just look at what he's already done for the Memphis.
Yeah.
Player
Unfortunately,
of
it probably won't.
It
Happen because he's a big, because he's so good
And that's
on the court. That is.
Yeah, and that's why we kind of love him, even though he's a fucking idiot at times. Sean, I've let you mute yourself enough here. Go crazy with these 4 nominees. There are a lot of ways you can go. You
Sean,
can also unmute yourself also to actually do the point, but that's all here or there.
Anthony was really the most passionate when the decision came down amongst our group to keep Florida State out. And he gave all the arguments that you've heard tonight and in the press. The way I look at it is this. If you're Michigan, who wound up as the #1 seed based on their resume, and hypothetically, if you were Michigan and you had the choice of your opponent out of these 3 teams, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida State right now, Florida State is going to be on the top of that list every time. And that's why Florida State does not deserve to be in the top 4. For me, it's as simple as that. They had to make a decision, and I think they made the sensible, competent one. I think this came down to the real WTF bad moment for a certain brand of SEC fans, which was when the Iron Bowl 2023 took place. There was an epic game that Sports Illustrated decided was the game of the year. Alabama-Auburn at Jordan-Hare. And Auburn really, they relished the big win. For the past 5-7 years or so, they haven't had many big wins. 2 out of the last 4 years, they went toe-to-toe with a better Alabama team and came up this short on situations where it could have gone the other way for them, and the fans would have rushed the field and jumped over those bushes. And this year, they gave up a 4th and 31, which was the real WTF bad moment of the entire year. It's so frustrating because they haven't been good, even their rivalries against LSU. They probably won 2 out of the last 7 or 8 games. They've lost, like, I don't know, consecutive 8 years or more against Georgia, and 4 years losing the Iron Bowl in a row when they could have had 2 of those. So it's been really hard times, and that fan base was so primed and ready for a win. And when you have 4th and 31, I mean, that's almost as much as a gimme as you can have it. And then, you know, they made the play called the Gravedigger. And what can you do? And it was so demoralizing.
Oh, I mean, it did its job of getting the grave.
Named, it dug the grave of 2 teams, Georgia and FSU.
Yeah. So that play right there, I mean, for me, who kind of like, I like to follow Auburn because of a family friend when I was younger. He liked them, so I sort of just watched them for affinity and watched them all through the years. I don't have any connection with the school, but they're fun to follow. And I really feel bad for that fan base. And, you know, that would have been a big win for Hugh Freeze, the student body, the entire school. But the opportunity just vanished into thin air.
That's my LSU connection, by the way, heads up. And that's one of the reasons why I root for the Tigers. Jay, bring this whole mess of a WTF segment, in a good way, of course, home for us. There was a lot of stuff.
Happy to, partner. You know, all of these are deserving finalists, and we talked at length about 3 of them on the show when they happened, and I'm sure we'll put the final word on the whole SU CFP exclusion when we do our CFP title game preview in January. Though we definitely, as you guys have, you know, alluded to here, we definitely talked about it plenty across phone calls and group texts the day it went down and the days following it. You know, y'all got into it here, but I'll save my thoughts on it for that CFP show, other than to say this, and I think the rabbi and I kind of are of the similar minds here about it. The entire situation was a Kobayashi Maru, and no one on that committee was James Kirk. For those of you who don't speak Star Trek, that means the committee was The committee was in a no-win scenario, and there was no way to change the condition of the situations to have everyone survive. No matter what choice they made, FSU or Alabama, they were going to get crucified. The only question was whether it would be in Tuscaloosa or Tallahassee. Turns out it was Tallahassee. The committee may have seen it as the correct decision, but it'll be debated ad nauseum if it was the right decision. The Kevin Brown thing was just absurd, and even though it was completely on brand for, as I said on the show at the time, the quote, petty, insecure little men named Angelos who have been running this team for decades now, end quote, and how it detracted from what was one of the best stories in baseball at the time, the resurgence of the Baltimore Orioles. I wasted way too much digital ink on John Morant and his incidents across multiple shows. Anthony and I are in agreement with this. Y'all know how I feel about his actions and the people that he does and does not surround himself with that have led to him being a finalist here. For me, the most egregiously bad WTF of the year was what John Fisher did and is doing to the city of Oakland and the fans of the A's. He is up there on the list of the worst owners in professional sports, and he was there long before pulling his Vegas relocation crap. He has refused to spend money, and he has plenty, by the way. According to Forbes, his fortune is about $2.6 million, largely due to his partnership in the Gap clothing store. He's the youngest son of the company's founders and all. But that refusal to put a major league level product on the field is a slap in the face to a fan base that has bled green and gold since the A's came to the left coast in 1968. As I said in our MLB midseason report back in July, over the last 10 seasons, Fisher's averaged MLB's 26th highest payroll. The team's only won one playoff game. It shouldn't be a surprise that the fan base is turned away. They're not stupid. When the team is good, they show up. When ownership orders yet another fire sale of the roster, they don't. Fisher can blame the lack of fan turnout and the lack of options given him by the city of Oakland, all he wants as reasons for him relocating the franchise from the 10th largest media market to the 40th largest. But we all know that's just, and forgive my Bronx here, bullshit. Shame on him and shame on Rob Manfred for aiding and abetting in this farce, which is, in my opinion, the epitome of what the bad WTF award is all about.
I don't think Las Vegas shouldn't be treated as the 40th market. It should be treated as an area with a lot of opportunity in it. However, that opportunity does not include an outdoor baseball team. It includes a Death Star football stadium like Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders are playing. It will probably include basketball one day because those sports are the best to be gambled on, and you can actually have a Raiders fan base. And I don't know, there's going to be a fan base that comes to Las Vegas where it becomes an expansion team.
I know Vegas in the summer can get really, really hot.
It's a dry heat.
It's
a dry heat. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Air conditioning.
They're probably long gone by
air
then.
conditioning at 1:30 at 6 o'clock games. Perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell that to the Heat.
I can tell that to the Heat too. Okay, let's gather around the round table, figurative round table, and talk about Los Angeles Angels star former Los Angeles Angels star Shohei Ohtani. Not because he was making a playoff push. The Angels are allergic to the playoffs. Because he was treated like the Golden Bachelor during his free agency, as in special, not old. Sorry, Jerry Turner. You're the only true Golden Bachelor out there. But the AL MVP got the ultimate prize this past December 9th as he got a 10-year, $700 million contract, total worth. Let's forget about deferred money. Don't make that joke anymore. And got it from the Los Angeles Dodgers, who then also decided to sign another guy in Yamamoto for a ridiculous amount of money before ever playing and throwing a pitch in major leagues. But let's focus on Ohtani. This is, as any mathematic would know, by far the biggest contract in American sports history. Now, Jay, as the whole Ohtani process here, is this good? Is this bad? Are you indifferent on the whole thing?
All right, I'm going to let y'all debate whether Ohtani or anyone deserves a 10-year, $700 million contract. For some context, the gross national product of American Samoa is $709 million. And whether or not
that you never wanted to know and now officially know now.
There you go. And whether or not he and the Dodgers are circumventing the system by Ohtani only collecting a $2 million a year salary with the remaining $680 million to be deferred and paid out at a straight up $68 million a year over 10 years after he retires. All I'm going to do, with a little assist from Jason Stark of The Athletic, is remind you all why he's the greatest Shohei. on earth. And even though he's made the Dodgers into the current era evil empire, he's made the game better. And his appearance in any city, appointment viewing, either at the ballpark, the sports bar, or your couch. All right, bear with me. Ohtani's career OPS plus is 148. His career ERA plus is 148. Is 182. His OPS is 182. That ERA plus is 148. So what, I'll clarify what that means for those who are not next-gen stat geeks like me. 100 is MLB average, which means Ohtani has been 48% more productive than the average hitter and 42% more effective than the average pitcher of his era. The only active hitters with a better OPS plus and as many plate appearances as Ohtani: Mike Trout, a 173, Aaron Judge, 164, Juan Soto, 157. The only active starting pitchers with a better ERA plus and as many innings pitched as Ohtani: Clayton Kershaw, 157, Jacob deGrom, 155, Max Fried at 144. So imagine signing the fourth best offensive player in baseball and the fourth best starting pitcher in baseball on the same day. It's basically what the Dodgers did, even if they won't get the pitcher until 2025. Here's some more career blow-your-mind hitter-pitcher stats. Through his age 28 season, Ohtani has a 148 OPS plus with 171 homers, 86 steals. Only 9 hitters in the live ball era have had a start to a career like that through age 28. You guys might know these names: Mike Trout, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, Reggie Jackson, Ken Griffey Jr., Frank Robinson, Vladimir Guerrero Sr., and Ohtani. Through that same age 28 season, he has a 142 ERA plus in 481 and 2/3 innings, 11.4 Ks per 9. Here's your list of all the starting pitchers in the live ball era through age 28 with that many innings, that good of an ERA plus, and at least 1 strikeout per inning. Mr. Stark graciously lowered the strikeout bar to 9 Ks per 9. Here are the names: Pedro Martinez, Kershaw, deGrom, and Ohtani. How's this for a single game blow your mind hitter pitcher stats? On May 9th, 1918, Babe Ruth went 5 for 5 with a triple, a single, and 3 doubles while pitching into extra innings before finally losing to future Hall of Famer Walter Johnson. Babe never had another game with a single, double, triple in any pitches thrown. But on April 27th, Ohtani had a game like that and a win over Oakland. Here's the significance. Ohtani was the first pitcher with a single, double, and triple in any kind of a game in 36 years, since Danny Darwin in 1987, and only the third in the past 6 decades. You know who didn't have any games with a single, double, and triple this year, despite the fact that they weren't distracted by having to throw a single pitch? I think you'll know these names too: Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, Julio Rodriguez, Bobby Witt Jr., and about 1,000 other guys who otherwise appear seriously multi-talented. Here's another single game blow your mind hitter pitcher stat combo. On June 27th, Ohtani the pitcher faced 24 Chicago White Sox, struck out 10. Ohtani the hitter took 3 swings all night, got 3 hits, 2 of them left the yard. Here, courtesy of Mr. Stark, is the list of players in the division era with double-digit strikeouts on the mound and a multi-homer day in the batter's box in the same game: Rick Wise, 1971, the aforementioned Madison Bumgarner in 2017, Zach Greinke in 2019, and Mr. Ohtani. And here's some doubleheader blow-your-mind hitter-pitcher stat combo. On July 27th in Detroit, man, the 27th day of the month was pretty damn prolific for Ohtani this past year. The pitcher threw a 1-hit shutout in game 1 of his doubleheader, and the hitter hit 2 home runs in game 2 of the doubleheader. If that's not the greatest doubleheader performance in baseball history, at least per Mr. Stark's strange but true world headquarters, I don't know what is. But Mr. Stark asked the question anyway, and per the Elias Sports Bureau, via MLB.com's resident Shohei Ohtani historian, Sarah Langs, no one had ever had a doubleheader like that in all of baseball history, no one but Shohei Ohtani. The Babe, on July 17 of 1918, was the last player before Ohtani to throw a shutout in one game of a doubleheader and then start at another position in the other, but nothing off his bat left the yard. Gents, I don't know, but if you ask me, Shohei Ohtani deserves every dollar the Dodgers are going to pay him, no matter how they elect to do it. The dude's flat out ridiculous.
What did so the Shohei Ohtani historian? What does he do when he's injured? What does she do when he's injured? Does she just go away? Does she talk about Yamamoto? Does she find Japanese players?
Be nice, Rabbi. Be nice, Sarah.
I am being nice. I do think.
No, Rabbi, be nice. Sarah Langs is suffering from ALS. She works for MLB.com.
Okay.
He just happens to be their in-house Shohei Ohtani expert.
Okay. It is. I just thought when you said historian, I'm just like, what? It is an expert though. Anthony, amazing contract to get, and I think The numbers speak for itself. The contract is pretty interesting in its own mind, and is something that just takes your eyes off of the page immediately.
Yeah, it's the fact. Look, when I saw the alert on my phone, I was in the middle of Christmas shopping, and I dropped my phone in the middle of the traffic, almost got hit by a car because I could not believe. Am I reading this correct? Am I reading this correct? I'm literally right there on Court Street. I'm like, am I reading this correctly? Is that
You and everybody else.
$700 million? A 10-year deal. And it's a long contract in sports, and it eclipses Leo Messi's $673 million contract that he got with FC Barcelona. And the fact that the amount, the 600 plus, is being deferred to after, like, to much later on down the road.
680 million, Ant.
Yeah, meaning that, hey, first off, I want to know, can Shohei, can he adopt me as one of his kids? I mean,
You're
I
only
have some
getting
$2
$2 a
Are
year.
you only
and
going?
that's
Are you
so-
only going there because Bobby Bonilla turned you down more than once?
Actually, about 3 times, but who's counting? But
Rabbit.
anyway, who's counting? But when you look at Ohtani, though, I mean, he is probably the most unique player we've seen in Major League Baseball. Just the fact that on a given day, a given night, he can be your best hitter and your best pitcher all in one for a swoop. I mean, you don't have to take the guy out of the lineup, and that's what the uniqueness of having a Shohei Ohtani on your team. And obviously, I follow him on social media. He's a great teammate because I remember the day he was announced as a starter for the American League All-Star team. He's actually raving about Mike Trout making it to the All-Star team. Once again, his now former Angel teammate, who, by the way, he struck out to end the World Baseball Classic. So I wonder if that conversation was like when they finally got back in the same clubhouse together. But the Dodgers, after the way they face planted in the playoffs, I feel like they feel like they had to go for a home run swing. They had to go for it all. He pretty much priced himself out of many teams, the Mets and the Yankees, respectively. Really, the Dodgers and maybe the Giants. There was whispers of that. Were really in the run, but the Dodgers was really the team that not only would be able to meet the contract demand, but also provide him with. While he's still in the same LA market, he is now with the LA team, the historic Los Angeles Dodgers, with all the rich history and tradition. And that's gonna be big. Think about the Dodgers lineup. He's joining Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and all these other guys. That's gonna be every night next season. Major League Baseball gonna find an excuse to get the Dodgers on national TV because they know that's gonna be a must-see TV every time they take the field. And remember, we got new MLB schedule, so every team playing each other. You don't think the Dodgers? You don't think baseball and is licking the chops at putting Yankees Dodgers on national TV because those two teams are going to play each other at some point next season. It's a big win for the Dodgers. It's a mind-boggling contract when you think about the amount and how much is being deferred down the line. But at the same time, yeah, as a Met fan, it lets us off the hook because we no longer have to get down by Bobby Bonilla Day. But yes, Bobby Bonilla, I asked for a couple of $1,000. He turned me down. You offered me an autograph. I'm not interested.
Before we get off the tracks here, ironically enough, the first deferred payment for Shohei Ohtani comes after the year after the last deferred payment for Bobby Bonilla. Pedro, it's interesting to see the Dodgers become the operational Death Star that a lot of people have called the Yankees over the years, but you're also tapping into a brand new market. As you don't see a Dodger game in Japan, they probably just screwed up the antenna signal because that's going to be a team that is going to be worldwide followed.
Oh yes. This is more than anything is a marketing move. More than anything else. It's a marketing move, and as Jay mentioned earlier in his stats, he was worth every penny. And if it gives a lot of intangibles to the field in addition to the tangibles. And I think starting in 2025, the Dodgers are going to be the team to beat. I'm hoping that the Dodgers, after spending all this money, they'll probably, and this pains me as a Mets fan, but I'm going to say, this is the Dodgers' year. They've got a lot of pressure to win starting 2025. There's going to be very heavy pressure involved. But again, that was the nice way they worked out the contract. I think it's probably a tax sort of thing as well, to defer the money,
Of
so
course.
get insurance on him. I'm sure they've got insurance on him, so in case he has to have Tommy John, and usually a lot of these pitchers do, they've got insurance on him. That's the way, I mean, but like I said, it's going to be, and then him and Yamamoto, every game is going to be broadcast in Japan, probably.
And they've screwed up the signal if that didn't happen. Sean, what scheme can we come up with that we can get a 10-year, $700 million contract for being good on
I think there's like the money involved and like how it's flying around and how it's probably in some other realm that I'm light years away from understanding acceptable for this type of contract for this player to be valued that way. There are probably people who could competently do that and did that in this case. There was a legal case, not involving the politics of it, but if you remember, Fox News settled with Dominion Voting for something like $750 million. And that was more than the company was worth. But for whatever business reasons there were, Fox decided to give that money out. And the legal community was shocked in a similar way to, I think, how the sports fans were shocked when they saw that number, even though if you are in that area involved in contracts, procurements, and stats, it probably makes sense in a way that would take me a lifetime to figure out. My Ohtani memory from this year, which speaks to why something like this would be considered for him, was at the World Baseball Classic, where he is pitching in the final inning, in the final at bat against, of all people, Mike Trout, with a 3-2 lead and a full count. Ohtani strikes out Trout. To me, that was the baseball moment of the entire year. I was really caught up in that more than any baseball game I had watched in years. I do wonder what has happened. And Jay, you've been doing this show with Pedro for about 20 years. You remember Hideki Arabo,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember going to the Yankee games and seeing the Japanese press there.
Yeah.
Japanese fans, and very excited that people who grew out of the Japanese league were having success in what was considered the major team and major market. In 20 years, that has changed. The Yankees are not the lure that they once were. And I think Ohtani puts the, Christmas ornament on top of the tree, symbolizing that.
It's different the way teams will have their playoff success and their regular season success. And again, Ohtani has never played a playoff game. I think that's going to change in 2024, but who knows? We could be talking about Ohtani being a Mets.
I know, his major league record, I think, is something like
terrible.
38-19. I mean, that's not like Cy Young. That's not something you'd
It's not. It's just funny how somebody like Ohtani, a generational player, and Trout, although he has been in the playoffs once in 2014, doesn't correlate to the rest of the team in playoff success because you need more than just one guy. But with Ohtani joining the Dodgers, he is one guy, but he's one guy of many other guys. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to be very excited to see this Dodger team in 2024. And also, as a Yankee fan, very terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Rabbi, just to Sean's point when he brought up, Hideki Arabu, and, that, Sean, it's been 23 years actually, that, since I came on board here. But I mean, you talk about Arabu and, the Japanese press and the Yankees and all of that. You think about this, we're basically a generation later. And with everything that Ohtani has done on the field as a two-way player, here's the other thing that he's done that maybe has had a larger impact on the sport at a global level. He's changed fundamentally how Major League Baseball scouts and front office personnel view Japanese players over there. It's no longer, they're no longer considered, it's no longer a question of, it's the Japanese league. No, it's the Japanese league. And they no longer look at them the way they looked at guys like Irabu as, now they look at them as legitimate professional baseball players who are now willing and fully able to cross the ocean and step right in and play at the major league level. And that is something that Ohtani is in some way responsible for, the change in the way Major League Baseball people view Japanese baseball players.
I'm glad, by the way, that we talked all about fawned over Ohtani, and only Sean was the one that mentioned money in the whole entire thing. So great job understanding the assignment, guys. Let's move on. We like to start traditions on this show. Guys, put down the eggnog. It's already December 28th. Not that tradition. Let's start a new one. We don't see a lot of college players nominated for Athlete of the Year, so let's start a college Athlete of the Year. This is any sport, any college, either gender. Start with Jada Daniels, quarterback LSU. This means a lot to me. He was the Heisman winner, had the best stats of any quarterback in the nation in a lot of categories, and the only reason he's not playing for a title is he can't play defense. Get on that, Jaden, before getting into the NFL in 2024. Caitlin Clark, guard, Iowa women's basketball. Born in Iowa and now owns all of the offense for the State College of Iowa, football included. Setting college basketball records for everything. She actually might just be the NCAA's all-time leading scorer in just 3 months' time. Bo Nix, quarterback, Oregon. He very much benefited from a transfer to the Conference of Champions, RIP Pac-12, lighting up the field against everyone, and he would have been in the college football playoff if not for Michael Penix Jr., quarterback, Washington. He very much benefited from a transfer to the College of Champions, RIP Pac-12, lighting up the field against everyone, but he will be playing for the final meaningful CFP trophy of 4 teams, starting against Texas in the Sugar Bowl in just a few days. And the winner is the only time where Iowa has ever had enough firepower to withstand going against a world-class quarterback. It's Caitlin Clark, guard, Iowa. We're going to talk about all the nominees over here, and Sean, Auburn fan by proxy of all of this stuff, you have a special place in your heart for Bo Nix.
I do. His tenure at Oregon really impressed me and what that team did. I thought the 2 most entertaining college games in any sport were Oregon against Washington each time they played. And while I would like to make an argument and support Bo Nix for the various stats, Michael Penix captained his team to 2 victories and got his team on the college football playoffs. So my vote would go to him. I mean, just in terms of, it may just have came down to who has the ball last, one play that didn't really have anything to do with the quarterbacks. But still, if you're the captain of the team and you win, that should fall on you. The LSU quarterback not being in one meaningful game, as far as I could see, would have, taken out my vote for a Heisman or best player. You got to be in a top 5 game all year, and pilot your team to victory to be the best player in college football, in my view. But Bo Nix was extraordinarily, he was the last quarterback to beat Alabama, as a matter of fact, and still playing in college, came back, they were right there. It was just a thin gray line that separates sometimes a win and a loss, and being in the college football playoffs and just watching it. And something intangible separated Penix, and I hope that they go on in the playoffs and prove that in the last year of the Pac-12, that was a league worth preserving.
3,812 yards passing, 1,134 yards rushing, 50 total touchdowns, 412 yards per game. Every time Jaden Daniels touches the ball, he gets a first down, 10.71 yards per play. Yeah, he was the first quarterback since 2016 to not play in a championship game and win the Heisman, but you can blame Brian Kelly for that because that defense was porous. And I think he did a lot to deserve his Heisman, but I've always had my issues in terms of him not being in there, but that's certainly not his fault. Pedro, great nominees, but Caitlin Clark is a is someone who
Transcendent.
breaks transcendent.
She's
incredible.
Schindler transcendent, but she breaks through barriers right now in the universe.
Oh yes, yes, yes. I think there was a talk earlier about women's basketball, how it's developing, the year of women's basketball. I think Caitlin Clark is, even though this is college, I think she is one of the major figures of women's basketball in this country, and I think she's just incredible. Just seeing her in the NCAA finals, it was just amazing. Just amazing. I really.
Yeah, and Jay, I'll go to you here. Very rare do we not have, again, a lot of variety in our nominees, picking 3 quarterbacks, but college football 2023 was really the year of the quarterback, and it wasn't just the SEC. We saw some numbers all across the board here. You could even pick the Texas quarterback, Quentin Ewers, to be here. Yeah, you could even make a case for J.J. McCarthy, who was about to play for the #1 team in the nation in the Rose Bowl. A lot of good nominees here. Why did Clark win it?
I'm gonna start by going down the quarterback.
Obviously, start going down the list, but eventually.
Am I surprised that 3 quarterbacks were finalists for this award? Not at all. Nix, Penix Jr., and Daniels all led top 25 teams. Nix and Penix faced each other twice this season, including the final Pac-12 title game. And Sean said it, as well as it could be said, and both of them showed us why they were the class of the conference. As you noted, Rabbi, all Daniels did was put up more than 3,000 yards passing, more than 1,000 yards rushing, and accounted for 50 total touchdowns, 40 through the air, 10 on the ground. All 3 were in the Heisman Trophy conversation for most of the regular season. All 3 made the trip to New York with the LSU signal caller walking away with the trophy and lifetime residence in Nissan's Heisman house. In any other year, I think any one of them would have been a worthy winner of this award. For my money, if it was going to be one or the other, I probably would have leaned towards Michael Penix Jr. for the same reasons that Sean has. But in a year where, as Pedro said, the women, a year of women's basketball, the women's NCAA basketball tournament was finally allowed to use the term March Madness, and it got record ratings. Viewership for the women's national championship game set records and doubled year over year. It shouldn't really be a surprise that the star of that show is our winner for Best College Athlete of the Year, Iowa junior guard Caitlin Clark. All the home state hero did, she's Iowa born and raised, was put up 27.8 points per game, 7.1 boards, 8.6 assists, leading the Hawkeyes in each, en route to a 31-7 record, 15-3 in the Big Ten, and the NCAA title game where they lost to LSU. Clark had 30 points and 8 assists in that game, but she shot just 9 of 22 from the field, including 8 of 19 from 3. Now, despite falling short of cutting down the nets in Dallas, Clark did things in the month of March that had never happened before. No college player, male or female, had ever previously scored as many points in one tournament as Clark did in this one. No college player, male or female, had ever put up a 40-point triple-double in the tournament, nor had they ever put up a 30-point triple-double in the tournament. No college player, male or female, had ever drilled so many postseason triples. Clark elevated her already stellar play into something so much bigger, so much more. All the no-look passes, all the shots from the logo, all the Maravich-like maneuvers in traffic, things she'd been doing for years under the radar, she showed them to us on college basketball's biggest stage. Clark was named National Player of the Year, and she headlined this year's preseason All-America teams from both the AP and the Athletic. Her senior year is off to a great start. She's averaging 30.5 points per game, 7.5 boards, and 7.4 dimes for the 12-1 fourth-ranked Hawkeyes. Caitlin Clark took the school she watched as a kid all the way to the Final Four and turned all of college basketball, not just men's or women's, upside down. That's best college athlete stuff, y'all.
Let me just tell you, though, before we get to Anthony, I'm going to give a shout-out to Angel Reese, who had 34 double-doubles in her year in 2023 in college basketball. When she transferred from Maryland, she became the linchpin of a team that was ridiculous in the NCAA tournament, winning it as a 3 seed. You never see a women's team when it's in the 3 seed. And I think we'll talk about that more later when we get the college team. But one of these people won the NCAA tournament, and one of these people lost the NCAA tournament. I thought we should have at least included both here, especially if we included Penix and Nix. My complaint, Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, I also thought of Leah Boston, too, for my South Carolina. I mean, you think about the job um, that Dawn Staley has done there. They've been one of the more dominant teams this year in a women's college basketball season that's been really kind of wide open. I mean, when we think we've seen a dominant team, we saw LSU stumble a bit. Iowa kind of got tripped up a little bit. But going back to Caitlin Clark, just think about it like this. They played a game against DePaul back on October 15th in front of 55,646 people at Kinnick Stadium. And it was not just like half
Most
cut off.
offenses
No,
they've seen
they
in
had,
0.5.
yeah, they had the court was set up right in the middle. The entire stadium was wide open. And the fact that you think about this, under any circumstances, would any college player be featured under this degree? But then again, have you ever seen a talent like Caitlin Clark just come onto the scene and she's had to, obviously I talked about her reputation for trash talking and the bravado, but hey, look, you're back. I'm old school. You're on trash talk, you better back it up. And she's done more than that. We saw in the ACA tournament, she's inside, and she's kind of front runner for the Naismith Award this year, averaging over 30 points a game. Could be the all-time leading scorer in a matter of weeks. And who knows what happens the next time around they get into the tournament. I know this. If you are a WNBA fan and you're hoping that she comes out, you can't wait. You are automatically looking up season tickets to whatever team she gets drafted to. Obviously, she'll go number one overall. But Clark is just a generational talent, and that's no disrespect to Paige Becker. So I'm happy to see healthy and back on the basketball court.
Amen.
And just seeing just a world of talent. But when you think of women's college basketball has a casual, just individual players, the fact that she stands out so much says a lot about the impact she's had. This year alone in women's college basketball, over 10 million people watched that national title game back in April. I mean, that is just an amazing achievement for women's sports, women's college basketball in general. And I'm looking forward to see what she's able to do the rest of the senior year, and eventually when March Madness come around.
Yep.
It'd be a very interesting time both for the men's and women's college basketball game. And again, good luck to seeing Michael Penix Jr. in the college football playoff. I have a special little Washington seeing them this season, and I think we'll get to talk about them again in just a little bit. All right, guys, New York sports has had some good moments in 2023, but when you think about the football and baseball teams in the area, you might think there were just as many, if not more, bad moments. However, we're equal opportunity nominators here, so you're going to be all right if you think it's all good and bad. Let's start with the good. Jalen Brunson, New York Knicks, point guard extraordinary. Wasn't an all-star last year, wasn't all NBA, but his 22-23, 24 points and 6 assists, assists on the Knicks, and leading the Knicks to a first-round win, the first in a decade. Not too shabby, I'll take it. The Nets' big three is no more. As the week before the Super Bowl, we see the NBA's most flawed super team fall by the wayside. Kyrie Irving gets traded to the Mavericks on Sunday. Kevin Durant gets traded to the Suns on Thursday. One playoff series win in the Irving-Durant era, and all they had to show for it is protests for Kyrie outside of the arena. Aaron Rodgers, on September 11th, he raised the flag as a new era of Jets quarterbacks happened, and a new era of the Jets would happen, and then he became another fun footnote in history. He tore his Achilles on play number 4. Out comes Zach Wilson for the New York Football Jets, and that goes about as well as year 1 and year 2 of Zach did. Longest playoff drought in the 4 major sports continues to 2024 for gangrene, again spelled like the disease. Domingo Germán's up and down Yankee pitcher career hits one more major up in Oakland in, the 24th perfect game in MLB history, although Sean doesn't think it counts because, yes, A's aren't minor league teams. But his Yankee tenure is done, though, at the end of the season. And if you were to write a book report on Domingo Germán's career, That explains it pretty well. And the winner is the MESS, that is the JETS, Jets. Anthony, I'm going to start with you, only because we have a time limit here, and I know when I mention the word Kyrie Irving, a little alarm goes out in your head, and you start bringing in everything. I know you have a special place in your heart for the Nets' downfall.
Look, I'll take it back to July of 2019. I'm at Citi Field, Sunday Night Baseball. They're playing the Atlanta Braves, and they announced on a big jumbotron at Citi Field, Kevin Durant signs with the Brooklyn Nets, and 30,000 people booed the announcement. And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be one of the biggest what-if disasters in National Basketball Association history for a franchise who was already been down this road before. Remember 2014 when they went all in on Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and basically gave away their future that ended up being the Boston Celtics that we see today. Because one of those picks that they traded away turned out to be Jason Tatum of all the things, right? Flash forward down to Kyrie Irving only played 22 games. Kevin Durant not playing at all his first year. Kyrie Irving complaining about needing better teammates, despite joining a team that made the playoffs without him the prior season. Then there's the vaccination. Then there's Kevin Durant, a half a shoe size too big. Otherwise, he beats the Milwaukee Bucks single-handedly. There's the very brief James Harden era. And I mean that ERROR. and then we bring up the anti-Semitic tweet. We bring up Kevin Durant complaining about his teammates time and time again. By the way, they get a coach fired. They get another coach fired. They got two coaches fired, Kenny Atkinson and Steve Nash. By the way, through this whole day, and all this for one playoff series win against a Boston team that didn't have Jaylen Brown in the series. I called it. I'm doing my victory lap tonight because I said this is not going to work out well. Because when you sign up for the talent, you're overlooking the fact that you're signing up for the personalities too. And their track record speaks for itself. By the way, Kevin Durant is allegedly not happy in Phoenix. Kyrie Irving is hurt yet again. I don't have to prove I'm right. They do it for me. That's why it's so good to me right now. But Aaron Rodgers, this is typical New York Jets history. I mean, I don't know what you can say. When they say Jets and it says for just end the season, this is literally what they're talking about. As a Giant fan who watched this team get beat 40-0 on national television, I feel bad to see the Jets fan base crumble when Aaron Rodgers suddenly could not get back up. And it's just history. Like you think about '98, they get to the AFC title game. The next year, Testavuli tells his Achilles. You think about 2004, they go into Pittsburgh with two opportunities to win it, and Doug Bryant can't make a field goal. You think about just the all along 2009, they get obliterated in the AFC title game. 2010, they can't stop the Steelers' run game for half a quarter. Just
Jets fans,
on
turn
and
away
on.
as he goes through all of the bad things that happened in your history as this has gone on. I'll let you know when you can.
Unfortunately, we don't have a 5-hour marathon show. Otherwise, I can literally go over the draft history too.
God, you can only imagine. Jay,
I want to go last on this one, Rabbi. Let our special guest go ahead.
all right, that's fine.
There's a reason. It's because of the final line of my my piece is going to be a perfect bow to tie it all together.
Spoiler alert! Why don't you, Sean? Go ahead and unmute.
I wish I had, the words that Anthony had to describe the Jets' fatalist position. I just take Aaron Rodgers before the signing, and I think this is a guy that looks like he should be in the stands with me watching a football game rather than being my starting quarterback at this point. So there were expectations that were probably set a bit too high for what a guy pushing 40 and very much looking like Y.A. Tittle in that famous photograph where
Wow, I
he's
never thought we would get older with our demographic preferences.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what was expected, because what was interesting was, even though Aaron Rodgers went down in 4 plays, the Jets came back and won that game. And the outlook towards what their defense could do and how they could carry their team was very different from how we look at how the season developed right now. You know, I think we couldn't have picked the perfect game because, you know, even though perfect games are so rare, I can say with a great level of confidence, this was the least significant perfect game in MLB history.
You might be right. And Philip Humber threw a perfect game.
I was more impressed when Andy Hawkins threw a no-hitter and lost the game
I remember that game. I watched it.
man.
in 1990. How do you give up 4 runs and preserve a no-hitter?
That qualifies as the ugly part of this award, Sean.
A couple of errors
Back in the
started by,
day.
remember this name, Mike Blowers. So I was
Yes.
more impressed with that effort than the actual no-hitter. The other mention, you know, in terms of New York, I remember, you know, I mentioned before the greatest game in college football was definitely the Iron Ball. And it does that every couple of years where that game just blows your mind. In this year in the NFL, that game did happen in New York. It's when the Jets faced off against the Giants. it was a bustery.
A game fit for the day before
Wait. Sean, are you trying to make a metallurgical comparison here? Because to me, that game qualifies as like the rusted brass bowl if you're going to use anything.
It was a game that was the day before Halloween, and it showed that it was the day before Halloween.
Yes,
And that was the game where where the Giants' Tommy Cutlets came in, and they didn't let him throw the ball until overtime. And, you know, they ran the ball. The Giants in the end of the 4th quarter had statistically a 96% chance to win. They blew it. They let the Jets tie it up, and Zach Wilson looked very good in overtime. And there was the Giants quarterback, forced by the coach, handoff, except when they had to. And over the next couple games, if they would have given more a chance in that Jets game, they could have pulled out a victory there. It might have been significant for their momentum. So that was a game I'll never forget, because they only play each other once every 4 years, and it was just an exercise in absolute futility. And the funniest thing was, I think I said this to you guys, was after that game, somebody wrote on Tommy's Wikipedia page that he's a handoff specialist from Rutgers, New Jersey. I love that phrase.
That changed, at least a little bit. By the way, Jets defensive specialists, they've given up 34 points in the first half tonight to Flacco and the Cleveland Browns. Another, by the way, if that had happened earlier, that could easily have been a What the Fuck Award nominee for 2023. Pedro,
yeah.
It's a lot of New York stuff here, and we're not even mentioning Showalter ending his tenure with the Mets in the season.
As for Aaron Rodgers, as we say, same old Jets, as Anthony puts it. Same old Jets, same old Jets, same old Jets. Whenever they try to improve their club, in other words, they take one step forward, and they take like 3 steps backwards. That's the Jets. As for the Nets,
Pedro, it's 2 steps, because Zach Wilson has shown he can't even complete a 3-step drop.
Right. Well, thank you. We'll make that 4 steps. Anyway, as for the Nets, well, as Anthony said, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, great player, but total complete head case. Everywhere he goes, it's like he creates a problem. Him and James Harden, another one. Oh my God, 3 of those guys together, and now he's James Irving. Harden is out of Philly.
Thank you.
Everywhere he goes. He has played in 160 postseason games and has never won a championship.
Never will.
Why. I wonder why.
Never been to
As
a
for-
finals.
As for the Knicks, I mean, they made a great play. They made a great run. First time they've gotten to this part, 2013. You know, Jalen Brunson. I mean, the Knicks have needed a point guard since forever. They got a great one with not a lot of flash. Just does his job, and does his job, and the Knicks win. And I heard they're playing very well, so he's doing a great job.
Hey, Pedro, all they needed to do was grab all of Jay Wright's old Villanova players and, put them together in the pros, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right, Jay. You got it. Yeah.
There's a lot of former Villanova players that can still come here. Interesting seasons abound for especially the Rangers, who have right now the best record in the NHL. So
a little bit of a redemption story so far for Alexis.
So far, so good. Jay, finish this off.
Yeah, as per usual, the year in New York sports saw plenty of good, plenty of bad, plenty of ugly. But from the moment he declared that he actually wanted to come to New York and play for the Jets, this award was almost preordained to belong to Aaron Rodgers, no matter how his first season in the Meadowlands played out. That it played out the way it did, I doubt even Hollywood could have dreamed that up, especially considering that they were out on strike and as such had more important matters to attend to. 4 plays. That's what all the hype and the headlines amounted to in the end. 4 stinking plays, and in a New York minute, it became 2022 all over again for Gang Green. With Zach Wilson and his offensive coordinator unable to get on the same page, the quarterback unable to get the ball to his playmakers with any consistency. That wide receiver Garrett Wilson won Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2022 is still amazing to me. His frustrations in 2023 are not. And the Jets defense eventually, as Rabbi noted with the up-to-date note from tonight's Thursday Night Football, they eventually became unable to carry the gigantic load asked of them due to their offense being, well, offensive. I've already detailed the absolutely historically awful numbers this offense has put up, so I won't revisit them again. Yes, Rodgers has made a remarkable recovery from his Achilles injury. Yes, I'm glad he's not going to play this year and risk said recovery. We can debate whether his presence at the team facility during the week and on the sidelines during games were a net positive or a net negative. I won't get into his season-long guest appearance on Pat McAfee's show. I'll leave that to the Twitterverse. It's unfortunate that only one of the finalists for this award had a truly good story. Jalen Brunson having one of the best seasons by a Knick ever is the only truly good story among the 4 finalists. I know it was a rough year overall in New York sports, but let's not forget that Garrett Cole won his first Cy Young Award. And we had a couple of kids from Jersey playing for their hometown teams and making a certain Italian menu staple the thing to eat while putting smiles on our faces, even if it was just for a little while during rough seasons for the Yankees and the Giants. All that being said, at the end of the day, I don't think any of the other finalists or even any of the other nominees for this award, and we had plenty to choose from, stood a chance. Aaron Rodgers' limited time in the Big Apple has so far given us everything we put into the title of this award. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Winner, winner, chicken parm dinner.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shout out
God.
to Jalen Brunson, by the way.
With that being said,
Shout out.
Pedro, we're going to let you go on this since we're going to go into the Tree Topper story. And Pedro, thank you for joining us so much.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Thanks for having me,
good to
Rabbi.
see you.
Counters of this
Happy
Have a
New
good
Year,
night,
sir.
everyone.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year. Happy New Year,
Hey, I'm looking
everyone.
for Pedro. I'm looking forward to see you at City Field next season.
Right.
Hey,
I'll
you
be
and
at a few
Steve,
more
man.
Met games. Sophie, I'll meet you at a few Met games. Just tell me where you
All
are.
right,
We'll meet.
all right,
All right.
looking forward to it.
Have a happy New Year, everyone. Take
You
it
too,
easy. Thanks for
Pedro.
having
Good to
me
see you,
around.
sir.
All right.
Happy New Year, Pedro. Okay, so we are going to move on in just a moment from here as we continue on this show. All right. We're going to go to a nice little award that Jay actually had an idea for, and I really like it. It is, for the first time in the history of this award show, we are in need of about 75 cc's of good news. That's why us doctors not licensed, have been tasked to find a good news story that we consider the most feel-good of 2023. I'm going to start with two. We'll start it quickly off with Damar Hamlin. We know the story. 2 days into the year of 2023, he went into cardiac arrest after a hit, and that's moments that made everybody who watched and people even around the world wonder if his life was in the balance. He got saved that night by Cincinnati emergency personnel. They got honored at a bunch of different stuff, including pre-Super Bowl 57. And then Hamlin made a comeback and got onto the field for a couple of games in 2023. So you'll probably see Damar winning the Comeback Player of the Year award, and it's well-deserved, because what's easier to come back than from a scary situation like that? That's the true definition of that. And now I'm going to turn it to one more thing, and then I'll let you guys get your stories. And I want to talk about the World Baseball Classic for a second. Third mention on this show. When the World Baseball Classic happened before the 2023 season, Trey Turner, who was coming over from the Dodgers in free agency to the Phillies, he hit over 350 with 5 home runs and 11 RBIs. Was called Captain America by a lot of us. And the city of Philadelphia, looking to defend its NL pennant, were elated. This was an addition. And honestly, when it comes to the Phillies, there's no more passionate fan base than the city of Philadelphia, just even about the Phillies and the Eagles specifically. There's also no more ruthless fan base than the city of Philadelphia, as a decent amount of free agents would do with their new digs. The first year for Trey was pretty rocky to start off. In his first 107 games in the city of brotherly love, Turner batted .235 with 10 home runs and 35 RBIs. That's the kind of performance that would normally get you run out of this town, or, as if you're a Yankee fan, will make you say that they're still not traded and I won't actually pick the prospects for it. Come on, you could have gotten something for Josh Donaldson. Anyway, sports radio in Philly suggested another thing, a standing ovation? Wait, what? Make a player feel welcome at bat? That's not very Philly fan-like. But they did it on August 4th. And then Turner got a hit, and then would get a hit in the next 9 games. It's a hitting streak. It has happened before. Who knew? Next 48 games after the actual nice gesture, 337, 16 home runs, and 42 RBIs. You put in a little, you get more back. All it took for the fans of Philly was to act like civilized humans. Who knew such a big ass, for an actual good story this year? All right. Everybody's got their stories. Let's go on with Jay. What made you smile in 2023?
Rob, just one thing that I kind of want to tack on about Damar Hamlin. I read that, obviously, it's one of the more amazing and heartbreaking as well as heart healing stories in all of sports in recent memory. I was reading it was one of the stories in Sports Illustrated's Sportsman of the Year magazine. That issue. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that one of the emergency medical personnel who was there that night, as he was doing everything he possibly could to get Damar Hamlin's heart started and get him, to a point where he could be moved and transported to the hospital. Once he got him there and got him into the hospital, he rode them all the way over there. And when they got there, before they offloaded him out of the ambulance, he leaned into Damar and whispered into his ear, "I'm going to get you home to your mom." And Damar said that he actually remembered that somehow. And to me, that little subtext right there, what's already an amazing story, that one really struck a chord with me. I don't know if Damar will ever be the player he was before the injury. He hasn't played much, played many snaps this year. The ones he has have been on special teams. He's only been healthy, I think, for four of the Bills' actual games. But even if he decides to call it a career after this year, and he hasn't said anything to that effect at all. He does want to come back. He does want to play at something close to the level he was at before the injury. But he knows that, and he's freely admitted that his life has a larger calling than just playing football. He's felt that way long before he put cleats on, and I'm sure he'll continue to do good work in this world and make it a better place long after he takes the pads off for the last time. With that said, I'll get into my story. Every sport has its thing, the tangible or intangible force that pulls us in, makes us want to play it as kids, and if we're lucky, also long after we're no longer kids. Follow it throughout our lives and keep us coming back year after year as fans. It's also why I do this show, so I can cover these sports now that I'm no longer playing competitively. Basketball, football, hockey, they all have that thing that draws me in. The games, the players, the stories, whether it's all year long or only at certain times of their particular season. Baseball has always been different. I don't know if it's because it's the national pastime or because it was the first sport I was introduced to when I was 5 years old, because of the history that goes back to the Civil War, because of all the colorful characters in all of the different eras who were sometimes bigger than the game or even society itself, or because of the amazing things I've seen happen on a baseball diamond that no other field of play has truly been able to replicate. Either way, baseball was my first love in sports, and it still holds that place in my heart to this day. That's probably why baseball stories have always seemed to resonate more with me. Stories like what Ichiro Suzuki, at age 50, has been doing with and for the sport since he retired back to Japan 4 years ago. He's been the starting pitcher for a team of his own creation, playing against an amateur challenger. He teamed up with 2 former pros, an insurance salesman, a company president, a kendo hobbyist, and a variety of others, and played against Japan's national girls select high school baseball team in late November in an effort to promote girls baseball in Japan. Suzuki pitched a complete game shutout on 116 pitches. He had 9 strikeouts despite never throwing harder than 86 miles an hour. He also went 2 for 5 at the plate with a double. The idea for creating his own team came to him by chance. While training over the winter nearly 5 years ago for what would turn out to be his final season in Major League Baseball, he attended a regional high school baseball tournament in Kobe, where he played during his time in Japan. One of the teams in the tournament was Chiben Wakayama, a highly regarded program from Wakayama Prefecture, south of Osaka, that would win Japan's Summer National Boys High School title in 2021. But what resonated with Suzuki wasn't just their play on the diamond, but the unique style of support the students gave the team. Here's his quote on that. It was the brass band in the cheering section. The fervor of these students was different than usual. I wonder what produced that passion. Even though they weren't on the field, they were part of the team, and their passion for being involved came straight from the heart. It was palpable, and baseball was the inspiration for this unwavering dedication. I was overcome. Even though I retired as a professional, I wasn't ready to give up the game I love. The game brought a special joy to me as a kid, and I craved to recapture that feeling, end quote. Thus, the idea to create his own team with his friends and acquaintances was born. No prior baseball experience at any level was required, just a passion for baseball and a dedication to being part of a team in a way that matched the culture at Chiben Wakayama. In a hat tip to the school that inspired him, he named his team Kobe Chiben. True to Ichiro's wishes, the roster is filled by folks from a variety of walks of life, with baseball skills ranging from a future Hall of Famer all the way to never got past Little League, and we're not talking Williamsport level Little League here either. The oldest player is 62. The average age is closer to Suzuki's 50. What binds them is the enjoyment of being on a team and a passion for baseball. Suzuki summed it up this way. Here's the quote. I had the thrill of playing with some of the all-time greats throughout my career, but in retirement, now I'm in search of a different joy, the joy of playing with people who simply want to be the best they can, regardless of their athletic level. I don't demand that they be good. I demand that they be dedicated. The joy derived from playing baseball with people who share a dedication to it is genuine, end quote. How can you not be romantic about baseball?
I love that. I love that. Although, to be fair, make fun of a lot of people who are playing with 50-year-olds playing against younger players. Just saying. Although Ichiro can do anything. Anthony,
Let me go next because I gotta put the kids to sleep.
go ahead, Sean.
Yeah.
Sorry
Go
about
ahead,
that.
Sean.
Thank you, Anthony. It's 10 o'clock.
I know where your children are. They need to go.
Yeah.
So I am gonna focus mine on Ukrainian soccer. This is a population of around 40 million people who are tens of thousands, perhaps over 100,000, can be said to be sacrificing themselves on the altar of democracy. And while this is going on, they're trying to keep their own sports institutions going. Ukrainian soccer has had a very commendable run in both the run for the European Championships, the Euros rather, and also in the Champions League. So now the national team, they got a tie with Italy, but that tie threw them into the playoffs. It was a tough division they were in with both England and Italy. So they have to now beat Bosnia-Herzegovina, and then the winner between Israel and I forgot who Israel is playing. I think it's Iceland. So if Ukraine gets past that, they could actually be facing Israel in a final for one of the 3 final Euro spots, which would be fascinating. Or Iceland, who's also done very well in international competitions. They were through the adversity, they just didn't make the World Cup in a similar type of playoff. But even though you don't win, because of their lack of ability to train and fund, just being there and participating in these critical games was a greater accomplishment than Manchester City with all their money winning all their championships and the triple victory that they got this year, which is what I think you guys should have picked for the best team overall. You should have went beyond the border just based on statistics, because winning the Premier League and winning.
I mean, they're fifth right now in the Premier League now, so I mean,
I think they deserve the nod by you guys. But
well, they're getting their just desserts here from you, Sean, and that's what matters.
Ukraine has their own professional league, which obviously most Americans are completely unfamiliar with. But it's sort of like the Bundesliga of Germany, where as opposed to only one team who wins it all every year, which would be Bayern Munich, sometimes Dortmund win, and they would won in the past. Ukraine has basically 2 teams that have won it every year since the early 90s. One is in the capital, Kyiv Dynamo, and the other is from Donetsk, Shakhtar Donetsk. So they've been the Ukrainian powerhouse for years, and they actually qualified for the Champions League. And they beat Barcelona in the group stages, which was quite the feat. And they lost in a barn burner against Porto, which is another one of these great international teams who does very well in competitions. So unfortunately, they came in 3rd place in the group stage. They can't play. They haven't played since 2014 in their home stadium because separatists backed by Russia brought war to that area, and they weren't able to play in their stadium. So their stadium moved to the west to their major cities like Lviv, and they've also played in Kharkiv. But for international games, they can't play anywhere in that country. So they use Warsaw and Hamburg. They don't have a home field, yet they've still been able to make the group stages of the premier club football tournament in the entire world and excel. And because they got a 3rd place finish, that puts them in the Europa League. So for that type of accomplishments and missed adversity, I think that's the sports story of the year.
Thank you, Sean, for joining us tonight. I'll let you put the kids to bed. By the way, Europa League is also a league to see if you ever had done it before. Israel is who they're playing, by the way, in that playoff. So it'll be interesting to see. I love watching Ukraine soccer play just because of all of the just fun that they have around there. If you've ever seen the stadiums that they've ever played in, they're smaller than what you usually see out there. But thank you, Sean, for joining us tonight before I digress and me and Sean get into a soccer conversation.
We can always count on you to add a little international flair to the proceedings, Mr. Roman. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year.
All right, Anthony, go ahead with your feel-good story before we get to our next roundtable.
Yeah, we all remember Adam Patman Jones, and for all the talent that he had coming out of West Virginia. He was notorious for being kind of the bad boy in the NFL. Constant running illegal brushes with the law. Was eventually out of football for a couple of years, but was able to kind of pull himself and redeem himself. Played several seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. He made Pro Bowl selection in 2014. He was close friends with his old college teammate and former Cincinnati Bengal Chris Henry. who obviously this month makes 15 years since Henry tragically passed away back in 2009. Um, he Adam Jones has actually taken upon himself, knowing what he has gone through himself, to not only kind of take under his wing Chris's two young sons, uh, Chris Jr. and DeMarcus, who are now high school athletes in their own right. But he actually moved the two children and the mother, Chris Henry's widow and ex fiance, into the Jones household, and Jones's wife had actually become the legal guardians of Henry's two young sons. And when I was reading that, and Zach Kiefer, the Athletic, did a tremendous job writing this piece. And to hear Patman Jones, to hear him talk about um, Chris's two sons, and you read about how Chris didn't get the opportunity to turn his life around the way Jones was able to do so. Um, and Jones really feeling like the two younger Henry children need a father figure. I mean that I there's something to that, and when you realize, especially me growing up, my father passed when I was at a young age, and I was fortunate to have great set of people around me, kind of kept me out of trouble, kept me on the right path, and for anybody, young people growing up, to have somebody that not only was close to their father, but also um someone who has been down a similar path and is able to kind of steer them in the right direction. We don't we don't really hear stories like this enough, and this always a stereotype. And this is just a stereotype with athletes and close to parenthood, and these are the stories you wish you could hear more of. Excuse me. Because and hear more of. You don't have to be a biological father to be a father figure. It's sometimes it's just more of being there for that person. The fact that it started from keeping in touch and just sending equipment to now you're part of the family, and um wanting to see that they get to have the chances, the opportunities that the father that unfortunately they'll never know, but maybe hear a lot of good stories about him. Um, I mean, that's something that I really think I wish sports media would open up and kind of talk about more. Unfortunately, we don't have too many outside of line think pieces, and we can only get so many terminology, heartfelt segments on the air. But things like this, you wish you could see more of, because it shows a different side of not just an athlete but a human being, and wanting um to be there for someone, let alone two children that was that he was very close to the father, to really be able to lead a really good life, and he wants to be that, and to see Pac-Man go from all the knucklehead stuff he did in his career to now trying to lead by example. Um, it really did. It's a great piece. It was a great story. If you go see Athletic, I really recommend reading it. It was a really, really well written article.
Yeah, guys, this is something it's very good to hear some of these heartwarming stories like that. Something that I think we should do in the future, even just look at some stuff.
And by the way, I capped off. Remember when I screenshotted Damar Hamlin's post, social media posting when he came up? It was a heart, and
Yes.
that heart got over 1 million likes within the next hour. And it became symbolic of not just Damar Hamlin, and it put a spotlight on first responders and the importance of training for CPR, and we're seeing more of that across the country. And just to see things like that, to see positivity and to see how the world came together, not just for him, but for the whole thing combined. It shows that the loud minority that we hear about all the time on social media, they're not the
It's
sports
a loud
world.
minority.
We are,
Loud minority.
that the sports world is a much bigger place. It's a heartfelt one when you hear more stories like this.
All right, guys.
There's more good than bad, and there's more of us who do good than don't.
Yes, we should think about this more than just today. That's all I'm saying too. All right, we're going to bring in one of our favorite people.
How about your story?
I did do my story. I did it in the beginning.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Right. And is Mr. Joe Tufaro. Good evening, sir.
Joseph, good
How
to
are
see
you
you,
guys?
sir.
Whoa,
I didn't
hold
realize
on.
it was Halloween again.
Yeah, well, I figured I'm here for a reason, so
You are here for a reason.
Might as well dress the part. Well done,
going-
sir.
I'm going to address this before I leave the floor to you guys. All right. I have a message to you, the viewer. Yes, you. It's specifically you. This is my favorite sports team crowd. The fan base that a lot of time will blame a third party more than blaming the team themselves. And after this year, I say, leave the refs alone. Not because we have an actual ref of high school sports here with us, and it's not just a common hatred that I've seen from about refs this whole entire season. Call a pass interference in the Super Bowl, swallow the whistle, refs. It's the end of the game. Call a foul late in the game, let the players play. But that's not the only way it works, kids. He got mugged to the end zone on an uncatchable ball. Do your job, ref. You decide to let the players play late on the game on that bump. What are you paying for? I could have called that. The chances of a ref getting a pass were being called perfect are as small as some random X/Twitter user not hitting the send button when they came up with that hilarious Photoshop picture of the star player and a ref exchanging jerseys. You've seen it no matter what you have, if you even look at social media. No matter what, the you blew the game crowd on social media is so vocal that I'm surprised that the refs don't get real life shit thrown at them in games in 2023. Although, do you ever want to criticize Ed Hockley in his prime? Fuck no. Man's got guns. And yes, I do think that there are refs or two that get too stringent with calling balls and strikes, calling fouls, or just decide to start calling in football a lot of calls in a row and try to be like more of like on a streak or something like that. Not all refs are created equal, my friends. That's how they're written in the Constitution. But I want to give you 5 reasons why the refs need to do their job in the least hostile environment possible. Number 1, realize that the refs are not like an announcer and are not against your team. The refs are given orders by a sports organization and a rule book on how to do their job. Is it consistent? Fuck no. It's under one umbrella, however. Now, that announcer, though, he does hate you. There are refs that are not going to get credit. This is point number 2. This is refs that are not going to get credit no matter what. You need to understand that. But go to websites. Look at websites that actually grade an umpire's performance. Go to the website for baseball called Umpire Sports Card. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many umps, according to that website, have had a perfect game up to 2022? 1. 24 players have pitched a perfect game. One umpire has called a perfect game. Teams need to adjust. It's a fact of life. It's like weather. If Scott Foster is the ref for your basketball game, maybe realize that you'll have more fouls called. Also, if it's Scott Foster, please make sure that Chris Paul is out that night. If Chris Paul is on your team, you're going to lose. Number 4, just realize that the Jordan rules are actually real, and I understand that. Good players earn calls. Good teams earn calls. If you truly want to win a game, you're going to have to make sure you overcome the bad calls during it and not be a Kadarius Toney and bitch about the calls days afterwards. A lot of fans can see a bad call in the third quarter and call it a reason why they lost. Truly, if you're a good fan, you should understand that there's other reasons why your team's lost, and it's not just that call in the third quarter. Number 5, and finally, whenever you think about somebody doing a job, imagine yourselves in their own damn shoes. You think you could do better? Apply to be a ref. Don't want to apply? Shut the fuck up and leave your plans to yourself. Joe, the floor is yours.
It's funny because we used to, as a group, we used to say that to people whenever we'd get a lot of people complaining or one guy chirping, we'd just turn around and say, meetings are on Tuesdays. If you'd like to join us, feel free. And then you can give it a shot. You'd be amazed when we have new guys come out on the field, how bad they are. They'll be running down, calling touchdowns on the 5-yard line. They'll be blowing their whistles. They'll be doing all kinds of stuff and try to just calm them down to say, just watch the game, watch your area of the field. And again, my biggest pet peeve with announcers, guys, is you have a lot of time off when football season is not going on. All these color commentators, go to a rep meeting, go to a clinic, go to a school, learn what we learn so that you understand that, that guy that's standing right on top of the play, that's not his call because you can't see something when it's right in front of your face. You're much better off from a wider view back. So that's why we all have areas. When there's catches on the sideline, if the receiver's facing one guy, he has the ball, the other guy behind him has feet. That's why they got to get together and decide it. Don't pick on us because we're getting together and having a discussion and trying to get it right. That's another one of my pet things when they go, we haven't seen the call yet. And you go, yeah, you have. He's got his foot down and his hand up. That means it's not a touchdown. So let's just move on. But again, learn some of the basics. It would be really nice to watch a game where the announcers aren't complaining about things that they have no idea or things we're not supposed to do that we're not even responsible for. So, but you've heard that from me before. So.
Anthony, go ahead on this. I want to get back to you, Joe, at the end of this, once we've all had some points too, and kind of talk about this more, because again, it's not a side that a lot of people actually understand.
No,
which is
Yeah,
something.
I'll go back to Monday Night Football, and the referee. Now the referee, he's 10 yards behind the play. He's in proper position. He's backpedaling. How on earth did he realize Lamar Jackson was going backwards into his own end zone to the point where he has to look up and say, oh crap, I got out the way, and inadvertently trips Jackson in the back of the end zone. I'm like, to see social media blow up over this, I'm like, you try going onto the field and trying to be a judge and trying to not get ran over by a 300-pounder and still trying to do your job and see how you like it. Look, here's the thing about officiating. Do they make bad calls? Sure they do. Do they make good calls? Sure they do. And it's not. I'm sure every referee, and Joe, you can definitely attest this. I think you will all want to pitch a perfect game as far as calls, but you have to understand this. They're working in real time. They don't have instant replay like we do as viewers. And get to see a call not being made, suddenly be like, oh, that was a penalty. That's why I think in the Super Bowl, when you saw the holding penalty get called, I was the first one to say, I think I got it right. That's a holding penalty. Because it's like, and with fans, the fans want it both ways. Let's just be honest. Fans are fans. They want they want the calls to be made. They don't want the calls to be made. Well, in actuality is we want the calls to be made, but we want the calls to be made for our team to benefit our team. Because you notice when their team win, they're not complaining. When you see your team lose, you see Michael Parsons bitching about holding suddenly after a 2-game losing streak when he said nothing about being held during a 5-game winning streak. So you can just see kind of the peaks and the valleys of when it comes to officiating. But I think I like this. And my old college roommate actually used to be an umpire for Little League Baseball, and he would take some of the verbal abuse from parents every Saturday for a couple of years. And he just basically told me, I like, they don't realize how hard it is to still call balls and strikes and be accurate. Because you realize umpires, every strike zone is different. You realize every officiator, including the NFL, they'll call games a little differently. They have scout reports for officiating, which I would think, like, if you're aware of certain officials' reputations, maybe you adjust your game a little bit. Okay, you realize you may get a little more, get away with a little more as far as physical contact with some than others. You adjust to it. I think teams and players need to be more aware of what officials are calling the game, and realize that the officials are not adjusting to you. It's the other way around. You have to adjust to them. and realize that they're going to see games a lot differently, but they're operating under the same umbrella of officiating, the same rule book as everyone else.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Jay, I do want to get, like I said, I want to get back to Joe for a few more things, but before I'll lead us home with your opinion on all of this.
Yeah, I have to say, partner, I am suitably impressed with your take on this. And Joe, as I've told you, I've learned a lot about what football officials do and do not do, as well as the how and the why of it from you. And it's improved my viewing of football games and my understanding of football as a whole. Here's as much as we as fans, which is all the time when we're not doing this show, and even some of the time when we are, we'll always get on officials for what we see as them blowing a call, either by blowing or not blowing their whistle. I think we as sports media analysts do recognize that these game officials, be it at the college or professional level, are only human and are going to make mistakes now and again. Sometimes those mistakes are going to happen in the biggest of games, on the biggest of stages, and will leave one fan base in ecstasy and another in agony. That being said, my only real overarching issue with officials, and I've said it more than once on this show, is the lack of consistency with regards to when fouls and penalties are called or not called, and what constitutes said foul, penalty, what have you. As someone who played football as a high schooler, granted a long time ago in what feels like a galaxy far, far away, and competitive basketball in an urban professionals league for over 20 years as an adult, I have some experience with this as a player. I've always believed that if it's a basketball foul or a football or hockey penalty in the first quarter of opening day when the score is 0-0, then it should also be a foul or penalty in the last 2 minutes of the Super Bowl, CFP title game, Final Four, or Game 7 of the NBA or Stanley Cup Finals. To me, being consistent with that throughout the game, every game, does allow the players to decide the game because they know what will be called and what won't, and thus will, in theory, play the game accordingly. As Anthony said, adjust. The second point I referenced, what constitutes said foul, penalty, or penalty, is the other issue I have with officials. Despite baseball's best attempts to definitively define it, the strike zone is still called differently, sometimes dramatically, from home plate ump to home plate ump, sometimes in the same series. Despite the NBA and NCAA's best attempts to definitively define it, the block charge call is still called differently, sometimes dramatically from ref to ref, even in the same game, which can be frustrating as all hell for basketball players, no matter the level. Despite the NFL and the NCAA's best attempts to definitively define it, defensive pass interference is still called differently, again, sometimes dramatically from one official to another, again, sometimes even in the same game by the same official. How are defensive backs and wide receivers supposed to play effectively? All I want from game officials is for a game to be called the same way throughout, beginning to end. That means once you determine what you're going to call and what constitutes that call it every time, no matter what time in the game that happens to be. Part of the official's job is to control the game. Another thing I learned from Joe. And part of that is not allowing one player or a team to get an unfair advantage over the other. So when you see that happening in the game, regardless of time of or level of importance of said game, blowing your whistle is not taking the game out of the player's hands. As much as the rage against the refs crowd thinks otherwise, it's doing your job.
And that's exactly what I was going to call for you to ask you about. Jay kind of, as usual, stole the point away from me in this case. Do you think that there are refs that call a game differently in the fourth quarter than they do the first quarter? And also in terms of stance of what they're doing, whether it be a playoff game or whether it be a normal regular season game one?
Yeah, I think the things that are, I think what's funny about officials when we get together and we talk about our performance in a game, performance in a series or wherever, half a season or whatever we do, the things that we notice we do wrong, nobody else notices. Coaches have no idea that we're going, hey, so-and-so's in the wrong spot, or so-and-so couldn't get a view from there, or whatever it was. It's mainly mechanics, as we call it, of where you should have been looking, what we should have seen. Those are the things that bother us the most. And coaches have no idea that we did them because they don't know all that stuff. They look at, again, making calls, which are judgment calls, which happen in our thing, happen in real time. We don't get anybody showing replays or anything. It's just a spur of the moment. So Anthony, we get more of the this side hates us, this side loves us, just because there's no replay. It's not shown up there to show whether it's good or not. Again, if it's against your team, you hate us. If it's against your team, it's good. So we're in a little bit different position that way. I do feel, and again, at our level, Jay, as we talked about managing the game, is part of the deal is to get the game finished also. Like, you can't have foul after foul after foul. If a team is so bad and you're losing by 50 points and they keep jumping off sides, you just kind of look at the winning coach and go, yeah, I know he moved, coach, but do we really care at this one? Like, let's just keep doing this and get the game over with, and that's fine. We don't want any more 5-yard penalties, no ticky-tack fouls, that kind of stuff. We'll always call safety stuff. We'll always call personal fouls. We'll always call those things. I think in an NFL game, you can never assume the game's over because we've all seen comebacks from dramatic numbers. So I don't feel that ever happens in that league, but except on the Hail Mary play. I think there's a league-wide understanding. You can do whatever the hell you want on the last play of the game. If it's a jump, because it's a free ball, and Jay knows this as quarterback, and this is how we kind of determine some pass interference calls. If a quarterback throws a rainbow, so Russell Wilson would be a bad high school quarterback.
No, Russell Wilson would be a bad quarterback on any level, apparently.
If a ball is just tossed up there, you're not going to get a pass interference call on anything, because nobody really has more of a right to that ball than anyone else, because it wasn't thrown well. It's just kind of a jump ball. So we're going to allow things to go. That's why the Hail Mary play, a lot of stuff doesn't get called, even though some of it happens before the ball gets there. The Barkley being pushed out of the back of the end zone the other night, the ball has to be in the vicinity, has to be thrown to that player for that foul to be called. If it's just tossed up there willy-nilly, or the guy was getting hit and he tossed it up in the air, you're not going to get that call. So that's the one I think is different. The Bradbury call, I thought, was a fantastic call when you saw it from the back side.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't see it from the front side. When you saw it from the back end, you're like, oh yeah, great call. That's what he's looking at. Because the other thing that officials do that the camera doesn't catch on is, pass interference is going to happen between here and your waist, right? It's not going to happen below your waist. It's not going to happen above your neck. So you're concentrating on that one area of the players. So that's where he's looking for that grab of the jersey. He's looking for that. And again, that's his key on that play. That field judge has that outside receiver. That's all he's looking at. So for someone to say, oh, how did he see that, or how did he miss? I go, it's the only guy he's looking at. It's like the back judge looks at the tight end. That's why there's so many holding calls against tight ends, because there's one guy that's all he's looking at is the tight end on that play. So, and you have to know these things. Again, as coaches, you would think you would go beat it into some guy's head. Hey, there's one guy watching you, and he's going to keep an eye on all that stuff. So you have to be careful. You got to use your hands this way, so you're not grabbing jerseys, or do something different. Because otherwise, that's what's going to be seen. Because again, we're looking waist to shoulders on players, because that's where the restrictions are going to happen. Right? No one's grabbing anybody by the leg. Nobody's grabbing anybody by the head. It's all going to happen. That's why sometimes you'll see them miss a face mask or something. A guy grab it on a play like that, because again, we have to keep our eyes where the hands are going to be active, and where it is. So there's a lot of mechanical things. Again, there's only 7 guys. They're all on the outside of the field now. There's no umpire in the middle anymore. So you're looking from the outside in. Everybody is 6'4" or bigger, and every official seems to be 5'10" or smaller these days. And there's really, it's difficult. You get blocked out by a lot because you can't come off the sideline. You have to stay in that white area. And that's why it's so important to keep the white clean from players and coaches and assistant coaches, because we're not really looking where we're going. We're looking out there while we're moving. And that's why it's an automatic, ejection if you run into anybody, or automatic 15-yard penalty if you run into anybody on the sideline. But it's a very difficult thing to do, because you are stuck in a position. And again, you're really only looking at one spot. And then as the receiver goes, you're turning your head, and guys on the sideline start yelling, "Didn't you see the hold?" And I go, I'm watching your receiver out here, making sure he's not getting help. Or I'm watching your quarterback as a white hat. That's my only job, is to watch the quarterback. I'm not watching anything else that's going on around. I'm watching the outside tackle and I'm watching your quarterback to make sure he doesn't get hit late. So I don't see the pass interference. I don't see the hold. I don't see the thing on the sideline where everybody goes, oh, he was right there. He wasn't even looking. And you go, yeah, we weren't looking because that's not where I'm supposed to be looking. And that's just, again, it's doing your job. I do think the NFL could easily handle a lot of this stuff. As we've talked about, they do it in the playoffs a little bit.
With the
With this,
review?
with this expedited review. And they could put one extra guy on every crew, and they could make it so that he sits up top, he watches replays, he watches it from above, and he calls down quickly and says, no, that wasn't face mask, he got him on the shoulder, or it was a face mask, or whatever it is. They could call the whole game with the help of somebody watching what we're watching on TV from reverse angles and hovering cameras, that we're getting graded on that when we don't get to view that. But the NFL is to a point where, and again, it's not the commissioner, it's the guy who's the president of the league who is responsible for profits. I mean, they took the clip guy away from the chain gang. So on the chain gang, there's usually 4 guys: front stake, back stake, guy who holds the down box, and a clip guy. And the clip guy, what he does is he puts a clip on the first big line after the first stake. So in case the stakes get moved or whatever it is, or when you go out for a measurement, we have a spot to pick from. You have this clip that's on a certain yard line. Well, there's usually 4 guys, because that's a pretty big job of switching that after every time you go for a first down, you have to move it. Well, they took that guy off the chain gang because they said they wanted less people on the sideline.
Oh.
Now, there's about 500 people on an NFL sideline.
Or
Yeah.
College is about 1,000 people on the sideline. In the NFL, it's a little bit less, but that was their excuse, was they wanted less people on the sideline. And they took him off for $16 an hour. They took away this employee that is integral to if the stakes move too fast and they come back and they have to do it. Now, again, they go to the review and they figure out where the down was and all stuff. But this is how you're marking first downs. This is how you're doing different things. And they took that away. They still use the clip, but they make the guy with the down box hand his down thing to the guy with the front stake so he can go put the clip on and then run back and hold up the down box. This is the NFL these days. So.
Joe, before we let you go, Rabbi, I got one question, and it kind of just jumped into my head. Joe, we've seen, and this has happened a lot, I want to say, since the turn of the new century, and maybe it was before that, and I just don't recall, where we're seeing more, because there's less exhibition games, we're seeing more scrimmages between 2 teams, and we're seeing a lot of practices once the pads get put on in situations where teams will have, for both of those scenarios, refs on the field.
Oh, yeah.
So you would think that the players and the coaches are seeing how things are going to get called, how the points of emphasis in a given year are going to be handled. Yet the mistakes, these players are still making these same mistakes, and the coaches are still complaining about these things. You saw these things, they were called against you during the summer. Why is it still happening during the regular season?
Yeah, and we do the same thing. We've offered to go to a lot of schools in our area, and we'll go to their scrimmages, and we don't, we'll call things. We don't walk off penalties in a scrimmage, but we will tell the guys what they're doing wrong. We'll explain to the kids how to look. Again, the Kadarius Toney. Oh, we've been told this since you're in 4th grade. Yeah, and you still don't do it, moron. So again, that's the answer, Jay, is they've been told it. They've been doing it. How many guys listen? How many guys go, oh, I don't listen to the damn ref. I'm not going to listen to him. He's trying to tell me how to do my job. Yeah, he's trying to tell you how to be right. And again, coaches don't have any control of this. I think position coaches, and I'm not going to go as far as Tom Brady, the racist, and say that poor coaching like football is bad these days, because that just opens up a whole can of worms. But I think position coaches should only get the rule book part that pertains to their job. So how many times you heard a wide receiver say, I don't even know what a catch is anymore? Well, you better figure it out, because it's very clear. It's very simple. It's written in the rule book. It's a video rule book now. They have clips of everything. This is what it is. This is what it isn't. Again, get the real thing. If that's going to be your job that you're asking to be paid $18 million a year for, then do a little studying and figure it out. Stop playing video games, Kyler, and figure out what the rule is for what you're doing. And that's kind of the key to this whole thing. Even with us, we know that guys don't read rule books, so we have to explain it to them all the time. I would go to, when I do white hat games, I'll say, "So, coach, do you understand the new rules this year?" And they kind of get that blank stare and they go, "Well, why don't you just go over them for me one more time?" I go, "Sure." And the reason yeah, because I know that they don't. So instead of embarrassing them, I will ask them if they understand them. They say, "Sure, I do, but why don't you go over it one more time so we're clear?" And then I get to explain the new rules to them for the year. And I've had coaches I've had quarterbacks. I've explained to them about throwing the ball away was different in high school for years than it was in the NFL and was in college. You couldn't do it. And so I would take a quarterback and go, "Hey, you got to it doesn't matter where in the field of play you throw it, find a color and throw it 800 yards over his head, because there's no such thing as uncatchable in high school. So if you're going to throw the ball away, find somebody wearing the same color jersey and throw it in the third row, but throw it over his head into the third row, and you're fine." And I would explain that, and then the coaches would go, "Oh yeah, could you tell him again what he needs, because he's not sure?" And I'm like, "So in other words, you want me to tell you, coach, what the rule is, because you don't know what it is?" And that's the biggest thing. So I think your answer, Jay, is the same thing, right? You can't force people to learn anything, no matter who they are. They think they know everything. Again, I hate to pick on a guy like Kadarius, but he's the perfect.
No, he's deserving of being picked on.
Right, perfect example, because his excuse was, "How do you call that? We've been doing that since fourth grade." And I know, yeah, we've been telling you since fourth grade. Check with the official. He's not going to tell you to move up or back. And now that you guys have seen it, and I'm sure this is something, Jay, you said, you learned a few things. If the wide receiver comes out and puts his arm backwards, which means he's off the ball, and he pays attention, he looks at you, and he puts his arm back, then he's off. Like, I don't really care where he's standing. He's told me he's off. You're off at that point, because you know where you're supposed to be. I don't care if you're this far behind the guy next to you, because you know you're supposed to be back. You're back. Now, I'm never going to say, "Well, you got to move back a half a foot," because we don't want them moving while the play's going. We don't want to be the reason they're moving. So if they walk up and point forward, that means they're on, and the other guy comes up and points back. We don't care at that point. Now, again, I've told you, 1 foot on the front of the ball, 1 foot on the back of the ball, right? So that's all we do. We tap our leg and go, if there are guys in front. So if Tony had looked over, he would have seen the ref standing there, and the guy would have tapped his leg, and he would have moved back to say, "This is where you're supposed to be lined up. You can't be lined up across. Can't be your helmet, can't be anything." And again, we do it all the first few games that aren't league games in high school. We do that constantly. Say, "Hey, just look at my leg. This all night long, just look at this." And we wind up giving them a thumbs up and a yes anyway, because they look. The guys that come out and don't look at you and just point at you, like, I don't know what you're asking me, because you're not even here yet. You're not set. So when you get set, then you look at me and I'll tell you if you're okay or not. But again, we're not going to say one way or the other. So these guys that go, "Oh, they should tell the guy to move back."
Not your job.
Professional player, I'm not going to tell him to move back. I'll let him know where the line is, and then he can decide where he's supposed to be.
There you go.
Like I said, we'll never tell a guy to move. And if he walks up and does this, or if he comes up and does this, we're fine. Then we understand where you're supposed to be. So
Rabbi, there it is. Before the fans start yelling at the refs, they should start yelling at their players and coaches for an utter lack of attention to detail.
I think Kadarius Toney is the first player that's ever going to get yelled at by the refs, by the fans, before the refs get yelled at. By the way, fun fact, I think Russell Wilson will be playing high school football next year.
Oh,
Joe, he could be coming to a field near you.
He could be coming closer than he had. But we'll talk more about Russell Wilson and other stuff the next time you're on. We're going to have you on a lot in January. Joe, thank you for joining us tonight.
Good to see you, my friend.
We
good to see you.
give praise to the people out there that don't get enough.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year,
Happy
guys.
New Year.
New Year, Joe. All right. Big 3 on the way. Time for the best college team, and it's been a crazy year. With college football's playoff expanding to 12 teams in 2024, we decided to celebrate by not including the team that started the year as national champion in Georgia. That apparently happens when you go 63 points in the national title game. Or the team that ended number 1 in Michigan. we now present the earned nominees, not like Michigan is earned, for Best College Team of 2023. Washington football, with a runner-up Heisman QB, the honor of possibly being the last ever Pac-12 champion, it could come back, and a Sugar Bowl appearance against an equally risen Phoenix of a team in Texas, coming up Huskies. In this category, because our next nominee is UConn men's basketball. In an ultra-competitive Big East, the NCAA tournament might seem like a walk in the park, and with double-digit wins over Iona, St. Mary's, Arkansas, Gonzaga, Miami, and San Diego State in front of them, kind of was. Iowa women's basketball with an all-world all-star in Caitlin Clark and a run in the NCAA tournament that included knocking off defending champion South Carolina in the semifinals. It seemed like that's a time with title formula. It's not, though, because it went to LSU women's basketball with a brash star like Angel Reese and a Hall of Fame coach also trying out for the Real Housewives of Baton Rouge and Kim Buckey. The combo with a perfect run to make a surprise title win as a 3 seed in the NCAA women's tournament. And the winner is, because I believe in West Coast bias, it is Washington. I'm going to go first in this one. I think I like Washington football for this award, and I actually picked them for this award because I think the story of being the last Pac-12 champion, having a quarterback who was on the verge of setting records going into this season and delivering in spades in an ultra-competitive Pac-12, which might have been the first or second or third best conference in the country. This is a no-brainer for me. I think when you look at it, Michigan is a very good nominee, but TCU kind of just goes into the back of my mind, and I don't think we're going to see what Michigan really is until we see them in Alabama in the Rose Bowl, because they weren't tested as much during this year. Really, the biggest test that they had was Ohio State. They did pass that test with flying colors, but everyone passed that test. I think UConn men's basketball has been a very good choice. It was a very good choice, but you do have to remember they did come into this tournament as a 4 seed. And I do think that they kind of benefited from a lot of dominoes falling behind them. This was the best team in the tournament. They, again, won all their games by double digits and is still probably the newest of the Blue Bloods out there. I give them all the credit in the world, and I think the two women's basketball teams kind of cancel each other out for me. I think LSU won it. They won it fair and square, and I think as much as that game was amazing, Iowa set their own standard, LSU has set another standard. Hell, South Carolina has set their own standard in women's basketball. That's more of an award for women's basketball in itself. So, as I've said all night, 4 of these teams deserve to win the award. Nah, this one definitely goes to Washington in what was a very crazy college football season. Anthony?
Yeah, I'm agree with you. Washington, the season that they had go 13-0, defeating a fellow Heisman Trophy candidate in Bo Nix in Oregon, not once but twice, and both very, very compelling high-scoring games. Definitely takes the cake there. You look at the season that Penix had, through 4,200 yards, 32 touchdowns, just to go with 9 interceptions. He led the number 1 passing attack in the nation. The defense is no slouch neither, and I really am looking forward to the matchup against the Texas Longhorns in the Sugar Bowl, which is pretty much essentially a pseudo home game for the Longhorns. Not too far from it's not a couple 100 miles. Yeah, it's not too far away.
Much closer.
But,
just say that than Washington.
Texas is a little closer. I think our audience is geographically sound to know that, but you never know. But yeah, I'm looking forward to I'm probably looking forward to the Sugar Bowl a little more than the Michigan Alabama Rose Bowl game, and nothing personal, Jay. Just that I think with these are two kind of newbies in the college football playoff picture. And getting the 8 o'clock prime spotlight game. I think it'll be a great showcase for both teams. And Washington, like I said, and Washington being that last Pac-12 champion, and you realize the history with the Pac-12 and what happened from here on out, and them basically carrying the flag for that conference. It's a lot, and I think, like I said, Washington did play their butts off. They really deserve being the best college team. And look, if Georgia wins the SEC championship game, maybe Georgia is the best team because they had
I
that
would have picked
lengthy
Georgia. I
winning
would have put
streak.
Georgia in there, and I would have picked.
Yeah, that lengthy winning streak that almost lasted 2 years until Alabama got them. So, like I said, Washington 13-0, Pac-12 champions, and an opportunity to play for the national championship. You can't beat that. And the two women teams, I think, really cancel each other out. Our is more about Caitlin Clark than the rest of the team when you talk about them. And we saw in that national championship game how when Caitlin Clark goes, so does the Iowa's offense, because LSU just did a tremendous job. The officiating in that game was questionable for both teams, but what they did able to do defensively was definitely just a masterpiece in coaching. I know Kim Mulkey is not one of your favorites, Rabbi, for plenty of reasons. Wardrobe being one of them, but she's been a heck of a coach for a long time for a particular reason, and it's because to get the best of her players.
I don't hate Kim Mulkey. I just think I just have noticed a hatred for myself getting over the years, and this even goes to Jim Calhoun, although Calhoun was more of a player's player than a lot of his other players. Kim Mulkey represents the women's side of the good old boys club that I think Gina Oriema is also a part of, and it really just disgusts me, all of the stuff that happened in her arguments with Angel Reese. She is one of the only women's college coaches in America. I don't even think Gino does this as much, which makes the game more about her than she does the team. And that's why I hate LSU women's. I don't like Kim Mulkey because as much as she's a great Hall of Famer and stuff like that, you need to realize when you're a college coach that you coach young men. It's not you that brings the title. It's the people you recruit. You are a part of the system, but you are not the whole system. And there's a lot of college basketball coaches out there, one of them just retired in Jim Boeheim, that thinks they're the whole system. And then I don't know, like stuff like that. That's why I don't like Kim Mulkey. All right, Jay, go on.
It's interesting your take on Mulkey, Rabbi, because considering that back in her playing days when she was a star point guard at Louisiana Tech, she was the complete opposite, considering she was the facilitator, the distributor, yes, and made everyone else on the team better. It's funny to see a person change over time like that. Anyway, I don't have a problem with any of our finalists or our winner. Each one of these teams had a special season. Two of them ended up as national champs, one as national runner-up, and the fourth has a chance to give the college football national coach of the year a national title to go with the final Pac-12 title he won earlier this month. I don't think I can add any more to the terrific season the UConn Huskies had than what the rabbis already said. This was one of the craziest men's tournaments in recent memory, and at the end of it, Dan Hurley and his team reminded us why UConn being back in the Big East where they belong is great for the conference and the sport as a whole. And despite some turnover on the roster and an injury to their big man Donovan Clingan, they're once again a top 5 team. What Iowa and LSU did for women's college basketball was as impressive as it gets. Even the trash talk battle between Iowa star Caitlin Clark and LSU star Angel Reese, most of which was blown way out of proportion by social media, which I know you're totally surprised by, couldn't detract from the best women's March Madness in a very long time. Here's hoping the women's game continues to grow. As for the other Huskies represented here, Kalen DeBoer's Washington football team has been the class of the Pac-12 all season with quarterback Michael Penix Jr. and his trio of wide receivers, Rome Odunze, Jalen Park, and Jalen McMillan, leading an offense that's number 5 in the nation in yards per play and number 1 in passing. Penix completed 65.9% of his passes for 4,218 yards, 9.1 yards per attempt with 33 touchdowns against only 9 interceptions and a 161.4 passer rating. Odunze and Polk each hit the 1,000-yard mark. Buck McMillan, who was a 1,000-yard receiver last season, may be the most dangerous of them all as he's finally rounding into shape after being slowed by a knee injury for most of the year. He led the Huskies with 9 catches for 131 yards in the win over Oregon in the Pac-12 title game. Their CFP semifinal matchup with the Texas Longhorns in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day should be an absolute blast. Whether Washington wins the national championship in the final year of the 4-team CFP or doesn't even get past the Horns, they're still a deserving winner of our best college team of 2023.
It's always weird when we have this award because I don't know where the college football landscape is going. It really was between 6 or 7 teams this year, but all of them would be good playoff teams. And again, that's why I had no problem with this Florida State-Alabama situation. That wasn't a team that was trash that got in over Florida State. That was a team that built up its resume that got in over Florida State. And a lot of people who already say treat that Auburn game as a loss. It wasn't a loss. It was a victory. It's the same type of victory that Florida State had when they went to overtime against Clemson. So, but again, another show, another time. We got 2 more awards to go. Time for our penultimate award, Best Team. 4 teams who show how the apex of a determined franchise really feels. We're going to see no Yankees 27 championships on this list. No 17 Celtics, no Celtics 17 championships or Patriots 6 Super Bowls on this list or Steelers 6 Super Bowls on this list. These are the new breed. Let's start with the Denver Nuggets, NBA champions. First NBA title in their 47 years history. Taking out the Timberwolves, Suns, Lakers, and Heat en route to their, I wrote it again, Rocky Mountain High. Texas Rangers World Series champs.
You can never use that phrase on this show ever again. I don't care how many titles the Nuggets win.
I hope they never win another title again now. Texas Rangers World Series champs. First World Series title in their 53-year history. Taking out the Rays, Orioles, Astros, and Diamondbacks to bring themselves finally to the peak of the baseball world. If only Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom didn't have to basically get the A on their test without doing a damn thing. The Las Vegas Knights, the first Stanley Cup in their tortured 6-year history. Go with me here, people. The Winnipeg Jets, Oilers, Stars, and Panthers fell to the new hot thing on the Las Vegas Strip, and it's still not the Oakland Athletics. Finally, the Kansas City Chiefs. And yes, they got their second Lombardi in 4 years, but remember, it's only their 3rd Super Bowl in the franchise history, and they didn't win their first one, and they didn't win their second one for 50 years. The Jaguars, Bengals, and Eagles don't want to hear that goddamn sob story, though. Winner is the Stars that are not... wow, you can tell we're already at 11 o'clock. The Stars are at night are big and bright.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
The Texas Baseball Rangers. Let me finish my damn line. Hey, go ahead.
Wait, who's going first, me or Ant?
Hey, go ahead.
All right. As always, the finalists for this award are winners of the World Series, the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup, and the NBA title. So each team is always deserving of the award. So in my mind, when I'm deciding how to cast my vote, did any of the teams do something for the first time en route to their title? Both the Texas Rangers and the Denver Nuggets won the first league titles in their franchise's history. I'm not going to repeat everything I touched on in our head of the table segment with regards to Rangers manager Bruce Bochy and Nuggets head coach Michael Malone. It all applies equally here, in my opinion. So the same reasoning that I applied when I said I have to give it to Bochy has to apply here to the Rangers. The Nuggets have arguably the best player in the association in Nikola Jokic, one of the best Robins to a Batman in Jamal Murray, who showed us all what he can do on the NBA's biggest stage when he's healthy. The Rangers weren't expected to get out of their own division, even with all of the moves they made before the season and during it to get better, not with the juggernaut that is the Astros standing in their way. Consider all of the following things that happened to the Rangers along the way to this World Series title, all of which are from the MLB's weirdest and wildest teams and games of 2023 column by The Athletic's Jason Stark. 1, they had a losing record in their last 102 games, 1552, after a spectacular 40-20 start. 2, they're the first team to win a World Series after piling up 196 losses in the 2 seasons prior. 3, they had previously spent more seasons without a title, 63, which includes their time as the Washington Senators, than any franchise in baseball that had never, ever won a title. 4, they're the first team to win a World Series with more blown saves, 33, than converted saves, 30. 5, they led their division for 149 straight days, blew that lead in August, fell all the way to 3rd place in September, took the lead back by 2.5 games with 4 to play, only to blow that lead as well on the final day of the season. 6, they lost all 3 of their home games in the ALCS and won only 2 home games during the entire postseason. And finally, they won all 11 of their postseason road games. They'd never had an 11-game road winning streak of any kind ever before this. If all that doesn't make them deserving of this award, I don't know what would.
How could you not be romantic about baseball unless you get a 12th stat for Jay Kaplan? Anthony.
I looked at these 4 teams, and when I was voting, I was looking at it, okay, which of these teams was the most unlikely of becoming champions? And that's when the Texas Rangers stood out to me because of what happened last year and the fact that this season they had the number 1 offensive team in baseball for much of the year, and they just and their pitching was kind of up and down at best. You know, they had to ground for what a cup of coffee before he went down. He trained with Matt Scherzer, who couldn't stay healthy through the postseason. This team, the manager came out of retirement to lead this team, and they lost the division on the final day of the regular season. And in most cases, you would think that would be a recipe for a postseason, postseason meltdown. We've seen it time and time again. But to see this team rally the way they did, and put it all together for that October run, and really, and just seeing this team just like each round, and like I said earlier in the show when they went into Game 7 in Houston and basically obliterated the Astros. I looked at that team, I was like, okay, whoever comes out of the National League, good luck trying to stop this team from scoring runs. It was basically the Rangers of this year became the team that they thought they were getting last season when they were all in. Kansas City, they're perennial powerhouses in the AFC. They can be on this list every year for all we know. Because that maybe not this year, they're not as formidable, but you got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. You always got a chance to be good. The Golden Knights, obviously, that's my second favorite team in the National Hockey League. I remember being at that first home game, and it was just after the tragic Vegas shooting, and to see that community embrace a hockey team, no less, let alone professional sports, was for me at a time when they needed when that community needed the most. They in year 1 they got to the Stanley Cup final, and it just felt like this team was knocking on the door, and just eventually they'll get through. And the Denver Nuggets finally went to the postseason healthy, whole. You got arguably the best player in the game, and Nikola Jokic. You finally got Jamal Murray healthy again, Michael Porter Jr. Little known pieces, overlooked pieces like Bruce Brown that chipped in. And they everything came together for them. They knocked off Minnesota in succession. They knocked off Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Jimmy Butler in the postseason, which is pretty impressive when you consider 3 of those guys either have championships or have reputations like Jimmy Butler for being clutch in the playoffs. So all these teams are very noteworthy, but the Texas Rangers on this list being the most unlikeliest team to reach the pinnacle, the top of the mountain, is the reason why they got my vote for best team.
They did not get my vote for best team. I'm going to throw a little bit of shade into this conversation. I'm going to get into my best team, the Denver Nuggets, when we get to our final award, because I want to talk about those accomplishments as well. Another shafting, but we'll talk about that in a second. Kansas City Chiefs are a very good nominee here just because of the way that they started 2023, winning their second Super Bowl in 4 seasons. The game against the Philadelphia Eagles was a classic game to see. Patrick Mahomes also got a little injured during the Jacksonville game, enough where Chad Henne had to actually play a few snaps. Their Cincinnati game is also an underrated, one of the best games of the year. I want to see those two teams go at it for years and years on end. But yeah, you're going to win a lot of titles with Mahomes and Reid. And considering they had a lot of the same people in their wide receiver core than they do now, and they didn't have Tyreek Hill last year, seeing them win a title is pretty impressive. Sure, they're 9-6 now, but I still think when you look at the experience that they have, I would never count out Mahomes and Reid in January and February. going into the Texas Rangers, it's a very good award. They did a very good job this year. Just the weirdness of this team, just the way that they struggled times this year. And again, this team was in third place in September at various points to the Seattle Mariners and Houston Astros. But give accomplishment to their run this postseason. However, I do think when you look at it overall, you'll always remember your first franchise if you're a fan of the team. But for my money, the stories of the Denver Nuggets getting their first title in their franchise history was huge, considering what they built on many years in a row. I know Anthony had said when we were doing our meeting, it's like, well, now this is what happens when they have a fully healthy team. But they had Jamal Murray and they had Aaron Gordon, a man that just got injured because he burned himself during a weird incident out there. So that's your third best player. And you were playing with people like Bruce Brown, who was a minor piece on the Brooklyn Nets for so many years, and he became a key piece to win the title. That's a team that was about one player. We'll talk about Jokic in just a few minutes, but they gave the city of Denver what they wanted, and they never had to play a game 7. For my money, I also would want to serve to you the Las Vegas Golden Knights, who are still currently the third best team in hockey right now, points-wise. Yes, Anthony, you're fans of the best team in hockey and fans of the third best team in hockey, points-wise. You have it really good right now in terms of that for your regular season. But this team is amazing because they didn't really have a star. They had Jack Eichel, but Eichel is pretty much a facilitator, not necessarily a complimentary player, but he's going to lead the team in stats, but he's not a big player in the league because he played with a lot of other people. And they played with the fourth string goalie in Aiden Hill, which is a story that actually comes amazing when everything comes down to it. You forget that they had Robin Lerner on this team this year, the former Islanders goalie. Then he gets injured at the beginning of the season. Laurent Brossoit gets injured. They have Jonathan Quick for a moment. He gets traded. And eventually, it's Aiden Hill who ends up on this team. It was a journeyman backup on so many other teams. This team doesn't even go to a game 7 in their play. That's a definition of a champion. They're all deserving award winners, but I would have probably gone with Denver or Vegas. That's just me. But again, I have one vote out of all the other things. Next year, I'm going to go to an autocracy, not a democracy. All right. Final award of the night. You've made it. Congratulations. The Golden Drumstick for Pro Athlete of the Year. Now, since Caitlin Clark won the college version of this might be the secondary prize too, the college version of the award. So take your place in the spotlight of Caitlin Clark, gentlemen. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback, Kansas City Chiefs. Another MVP, another Super Bowl. While this hasn't been the greatest end of 2023, there's only one QB who could say they've won a title this year and could possibly be a groomsman at a Taylor Swift wedding, and it's Patty Ice. Ronald Acuna Jr.
Wow, jumping forward in time much?
You do realize that Tony Romo has called Taylor Swift Patrick's wife on 2 broadcasts in 3 weeks. So it's not something that's been joked before.
Patrick or Travis's?
Travis, you know what I mean. Ronald Acuna Jr., right fielder, Atlanta Braves. 30-30 club? Nah. 40-40 club? Probably the 40-70 club when it comes to homers and stolen bases. The numbers were big for the best player on the best team in the MLB regular season. Nikola Jokic, center, Denver Nuggets. Yeah, he had his 2-year streak broken for regular season MVP, but how'd that work out for you, Jay, with Joel Embiid in the playoffs? Good? Good? Yeah, I thought so. But the man who got drafted during a Taco Bell commercial lifted up the Larry O'Brien trophy in June. And oh yeah, he's pretty much the most dominant player on the planet right now. Can't be stopped. Shohei Ohtani, starting pitcher / DH for the Los Angeles Dodgers. 2-time MVP, one of the best pitchers in the game when healthy, and I can think of 700 million reasons why he had a pretty good 2023. And the winner is that guy who probably wishes he renegotiated his contract a little later, Ronald Acuna Jr. I'm going to go first real quickly on this. All great nominees. I personally would have voted for Jokic. The numbers that he had this postseason were staggering and is really a one-man wrecking crew. What you saw from him in the playoffs the 2 years previous, sure, he only made it to the second round, but he made it with a cast of nobodies. He didn't get out of the first round that was 2 years ago. He only didn't even get out of the first round the year before that, losing in a 5-game series. Now, all of that being said, all it took was a healthy Jamal Murray to be kind of a number 2 player on this team, but he's still not always a number 2 player. He puts up very good numbers, but this is Jokic's world that we're living in. And once the going gets tough, there's no situation that Jokic cannot handle. The man is a walking double-double. He goes on your court, he's going to get a double-double, no questions asked. He might get a triple-double every now and then. It depends on how he feels going into the day. And I think what you saw last season is a playoff run that was amazing. The man, the machine. And I think he is going to be one of the best players we're ever going to see if he keeps this up. And I'm talking in the Chamberlain likes of dominance and championships. And the man, all he wants to do is go home and watch his horses run. It's amazing to see what Nikola Jokic is. He really is the 21st century player in the NBA. And Anthony, that's a guy who needs to be the face of the NBA and all of sports. I think he should have won this award.
Well, I mean, when you bring up him being drafted in the Taco Bell commercial, just reminds me that Taco Bell need to bring back the quesarito. I missed. Hey, look, for $3, that was one of the greatest things ever come out of Taco Bell. That and the nacho fries. But besides the point,
Yes.
when you see Nikola Jokic and even Anthony Davis' expression kind of set it off, he's hitting fadeaway one-legged 3-pointers with the shot clock winding down. You can't defend that. That's just like, this is just one of those things like, okay, when this guy has it going on, he literally has it going on. Literally, in game 2 of the finals, he had a double-double in the first quarter. But it doesn't even like he's put much effort into half the time. And it is remarkable how Jokic his game has evolved, and he has become one of the funnier faces in the NBA too. You know, he's a bit of a big kid, a goofball. They played the Brooklyn Nets recently. He was actually at the Yonkers racetrack before the night before the game. It looked bitter cold watching horse races because obviously that's definitely a hobby he likes to do. And he even said when the Nuggets are celebrating, he just want to go home and go to his horses. I mean, hey, look, if Tim Duncan never got criticized for being about his business and just want to lead a private life, why should Jokic be criticized for the same thing?
Yeah.
But Ronald Acuña Jr. and the reason why I voted for him is not necessarily what he ended up at the end of the season. Obviously, 40 home runs, 70 RBIs, and being the catalyst to an Atlanta Braves team that was just went through a historic offensive rampage through most of the season. They actually scored more first inning runs than the Mets for a whole season in 1 month. That just tell you how good they were offensively. Obviously they ran into this buzzsaw again called the Philadelphia Phillies, but does not take away from Acuna 2 years ago not being part of the World Series run when he tore his ACL and came back middle of 2022. Clearly wasn't the same player. This season, fully healthy, put on historic numbers, and I say this is a Met fan. I mean, Acuna Jr. He's fun to watch. He's exciting. He can hit the long ball. He can steal bases, obviously. I remember last year, one of the Braves Mets matchups that I went to, he hit 2 home runs and almost brought Atlanta back into that game by himself. I'm quite sure he wishes he had negotiated his contract a little later and held on a bit. But you know what? I don't think he's going to complain whatsoever. He had a tremendous season. His brother is now in is now in the same division actually, part of the Mets organization. So that should be interesting. The moment he's called up, what that's going to be like. But I couldn't go. You couldn't go wrong with any of these candidates. I mean, Jokic, the season he had is something that definitely needs to stand out. Otani, Shohei just basically had a Shohei season for what it's worth. And Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. You know, anytime he takes the field, you have a chance to win. But yeah, like I said, you couldn't go wrong with either of these four candidates.
All right, Jay, take us home.
Anthony, you're spot on about that. Patrick Mahomes led the Chiefs to a Super Bowl win, picking up regular season and Super Bowl MVP hardware along the way. Nikola Jokic, who it could be argued is the NBA MVP any year, led the Nuggets to their first Larry O'Brien trophy and was named Finals MVP. Shohei Ohtani, he simply had another year of doing Shohei Ohtani things, a host of which we got into in the roundtable conversation about his new contract with the Dodgers, en route to winning the AL MVP, his second in 3 years, though, as both Anthony and Sean said, striking out his now former Angels teammate Mike Trout to win the World Baseball Classic for Japan before the actual MLB season got underway was a baseball moment for the ages. Any other year, any of these gents would be a worthy winner of this award with all that they accomplished. But what Ronald Acuna Jr. did en route to being the unanimous 2023 National League MVP was something that had never been done before. He created 3 clubs all his own, and I don't see anyone joining them anytime soon. He became the first player in MLB history to hit 40 homers and steal 70 bases, totaling 41 and 73 respectively. We've had 2020 clubs. We've had 2025 clubs. 30-30 is one of the more well-known clubs. We even have a 40-40 club. It's very exclusive. Acuna is only the 5th member, but he's all by himself in the 40-50, 40-60, and 40-70 clubs. Oh, and there's another club he joined, a much less well-known club when he chalked up that 70th steal, and that's the 70 stolen base, 70 extra base hit club. How exclusive is that one? Only 2 other members, Ty Cobb, who had 83 steals and 79 extra base hits in 1911, and Juan Samuel, who had 72 steals and 70 extra base hits in 1984. Hat tip to Jason Stark of The Athletic on that stat. And this one, nobody else in the history of baseball has ever had a 40 homer season or a 70 and a 70 steal season in their career. Acuna just did it in the same year. Here are a few more mind-boggling numbers by Acuna, courtesy of Mr. Stark. He hit .337 with 41 homers and 106 RBI from the leadoff spot. Led the majors in hits, 217, runs, 149, OBP, 416, steals, 73, total bases, 383. Led the National League in plate appearances with 735 and OPS plus at 168. He's just the 3rd player in baseball's integration era, meaning since 1947, to lead either league in stolen bases and OPS, joining Hall of Famers Willie Mays, who did it in 1957 and 58, and Rickey Henderson, who did it in 1990. Acuna also had a 1.083 OPS leading off games, a 309 batting average, and an 821 OPS when behind in the count, and a slash line of 355, 423, 639 with a 1.061 OPS against teams that were 500 or better, and an OPS plus of 150 or better in every month of the season. Any question as to why he's our 2023 Pro Athlete of the Year?
No. Moving on. Like this now.
There you go.
All right. We usually end our year-end show with some wishes for 2024. Should old acquaintance be forgot, and now let's be disappointed for the new year. Anthony, lead us off as we give
Wow.
for upcoming year.
I texted you guys earlier about talking about athletes and social media, but I just think in general the disconnect between athletes and the sports media has gotten larger. The last few years, we've seen athletes and media personalities kind of beefing with each other. I'd like to see, I guess for 2024, I'd like to see a little more of a connection between the two, at least a little more respect on a more neutral level between the two. Like, hey, look, we get it. We're the athletes. We go out and play the game. You're the reporters. You do your job. You got opinions. We'll leave it at that. To quote the great Jackie Moon, everybody loves everybody. I like to see
Nice.
I like to see a little more harmony, a little nicer environment as far as sports and particularly the sports media and getting away from some of the toxic environment that we see on social media now, and just getting back to, and look, a level of respect for both professions involved. I mean, I do think one side taking more person than the other, and vice versa. And I just gotta be a medium at the beginning because one, it's a yin and a yang, and you gotta have one. You can't have one without the other these days. And it'd be nice if both sides can at least come to some common ground as far as a respect level and saying, hey, I respect that. Hey, like, I disagree, but I know you got to do your job. I'm not gonna, take it to a personal attack level, and move forward.
All right, Jay, give me your wish.
Yeah, my wish for 2024 is for a return to the importance of the front of the jersey as opposed to the back. We've seen and talked about it on the show more than once over the last year, especially regarding certain young stars at the professional level. Players of a certain generation seem to be way more focused on themselves, their numbers, their brand, their status, getting paid. Some think they're owed these things and don't think they have to earn it, at least not by my definition of earning it. Making every game all about you and how many touches you did or didn't get, especially the latter when your team doesn't win, putting yourself in potentially compromising situations away from the game that could affect your availability to be there for your team on game night. Neither of these are the types of behavior that the folks who decide if you play and if you get paid hold in high esteem. You want to know what gets touches? You want to know what gets accolades? You want to know what gets you paid? Winning. And winning requires everyone to be pulling for each other, rowing in the same direction, as the saying goes. Sometimes that may require a player to take over and have a dominant game. Sometimes it may require that same player to play a lesser role in order for the team, the name on the front of the jersey, to reach its goal, which is to win, even at the expense of what the player may want for himself. My wish for 2024 is that the players who still haven't learned this lesson do so sooner rather than later. In the end, both they and their team will be better for it.
Okay, well, these two had unrealistic wishes because people are fucking athletes are fucking babies. I'm going to go with the even more unrealistic wish of health. Okay, I understand that injuries happen all the time, and in a violent game of football, we see people go down week after week, easier and easier, especially quarterbacks. Let's stop the trend of seeing QBs who make the game of football better going down. I hate Aaron Rodgers, but watching him go down and play for room in the New York Jets season. Daniel Jones basically lost half a season for the Giants. Joe Burrow's injury changed the Bengals' fortunes. And even though the Browns are currently about to be 11-5, they've had 4 different starting quarterbacks this year. CJ Stroud's Rookie of the Year Texans campaign stopped by injury. Chargers playoff hopes at Brandon Staley's job, dunzo when Justin Herbert went down. The Vikings lost Kirk Cousins for the season when he went down in October. People want to see their star QBs when they hit the field. Instead, when you went to the stadium this year, you saw the following. Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Jake Browning, Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum, Josh Dobbs, Sean Mannion, and something called an Easton Stick. I'm not sure.
Yeah, what's that?
Although the NFL sells its stuff, I don't want to see that at QB any day of the week. None of these people that I just mentioned were even close to keeping their team afloat during the season. None of these go Flacco, apparently. Let's stop this in 2023. It's a wish. There's no realistic way for me to make this happen, but the game is as close to as safe as they're going to make it. Watch the game. It's as close to as safe as they're going to make it outside of the hip drop tackle. That's another wish. So none of this is safeguarded too much more, and I don't know if I want it to be. But if we have to put the QBs and some star offensive players in the bubble wrap to just get this league more star heavy again, let's do it. Let's do it now. All right. For Jay Kaplan, Anthony Strait, Joe Tufaro, Pedro Hazel Jr., and Sean Roman. Also, shout out to Steve Ferguson and Nisa Petrilli. People we talk all year long about all of this.
Nolan Toppin. Don't forget Top.
And Toppin, yes. I'm sorry, Nolan. And thank you for all the Christmas wishes. My fault. Thank you for that. I apologize. I was not going to be happy if I missed that. But thank you for all of the people who have also helped us out all throughout these years, and all of you that are watching tonight. I'm just a man by the name of Stephen Rabinowitz. YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines if you need anything we've done in 2023, including this show sooner rather than later. And if you want to see us live in 2024, we're not going on tour. We're just on Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines. And on that Twitter thing that got fucked up and renamed, Jay.
At ONTH Sports Lines, where you'll see the link to this show at some point tomorrow. And as we've done throughout the course of the year, links to other nice little sports nuggets that we think are worth your time and energy to read or take a look at.
We got a ton of stuff happening in 2024. See you next week as we begin the playoff season in college football and NFL. Night.
Happy New Year,
Good
everybody.
night, everyone.
New Year,
Happy
happy
New Year.
holidays.